The maid's bracelet caught the light. Marcus Caldwell noticed it the way a thief notices an unlocked door instantly. Viscerally, with the cold certainty that everything was about to change. He was standing in the lobby of the Langley Hotel, pretending to read a newspaper he'd already memorized, when the woman pushed her linen cart past the elevators. Silver. Worn at the edges. A star charm dangling from a clasp that hadn't been polished in years. He knew that bracelet. He'd bought it in a shop on Bleecker Street 9 years ago because his daughter insisted stars needed names. She'd worn it every day until she vanished. The maid didn't look at him. She moved with the practiced invisibility of someone who'd learned that survival meant staying unnoticed. Black slacks. White shirt, hair pulled so tight it looked painful. Her name tag said Rina Reyes, in block letters, slightly crooked, never fixed. Marcus folded the newspaper and set it on the marble table. His pulse hadn't changed. It never did. Panic was for people who couldn't afford control. But his hands wanted to reach across the lobby, grab her by the shoulders, and demand answers to 8 years of silence. Instead, he stood. Smoothed his jacket. Walked toward the elevator she'd just passed. The bracelet swung as she bent to retrieve a towel someone had dropped. The star charm spun. Engraved on the back, he didn't need to see it to remember, were 2 letters. Z. C. Zara Caldwell. His daughter. The girl he'd buried in an empty casket. The girl who'd left a voicemail that ended with 7 words, "Don't look for me." Now, watching her fold a towel with the mechanical precision of someone who'd done it 1,000 times, he understood perfectly. Zara hadn't disappeared. She'd gone underground. And judging by the way her left shoulder rolled back twice when a guest barked an order at her, she was still fighting whatever war had taken her in the first place. Marcus stepped into the elevator. Pressed the button for the 4th floor. The doors closed. He exhaled, once controlled, measured, and allowed himself a single moment of something that wasn't quite hope and wasn't quite dread. He'd found her. Now he had to figure out why she didn't want to be found. The elevator chimed. Marcus stepped into the hallway and nearly collided with a housekeeper carrying a stack of sheets so high she couldn't see over them. "Sorry, sir," she muttered. Sidestepping. Marcus caught a glimpse of her face, young, maybe 22, with bruises under her eyes that had nothing to do with makeup and everything to do with exhaustion. "Do you work with Rina?" he asked. The girl froze. Her grip on the sheets tightened. "Why?" "I'm looking for someone to request specifically," Marcus said smoothly. "She seems efficient." The girl's expression shifted something between suspicion and pity. "Rina keeps to herself. If you want someone chatty, ask for Callista." She hurried past before Marcus could respond. Interesting. Zara hadn't just disappeared into manual labor. She'd disappeared into a network where even mentioning her name made people nervous. Marcus unlocked his suite, a corner room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking 58th Street. He set his phone on the desk and opened an encrypted app. 3 messages waiting. All from the same source, Bishop. Bishop wasn't a person. It was a handle for the forensic team Marcus had hired 8 months ago to trace every dollar his foundation had ever donated. They'd found the connection 3 weeks back. Caldwell Technologies had funneled $23 million to nonprofits that didn't exist the way they claimed to. The Horizon Initiative. Keystone Community Solutions. A dozen shell companies beneath them, all feeding into one ecosystem, labor trafficking dressed as charity work. Marcus had spent his career predicting patterns. This one was elegantly simple. Take vulnerable girls. Promise them housing and jobs. Move them into subcontracted positions at hotels, restaurants, laundromats, pay the operators, not the workers. Deduct rent, uniforms, transportation. By the time you finished subtracting, the girls earned less than minimum wage and couldn't leave because they had nowhere else to go. Legal slavery with tax-deductible donation receipts. And his signature on the checks. Marcus opened Bishop's latest message, target confirmed. Rena Reyes employed through Keystone Placement Program. Residence, Queens. Shared apartment, 16 occupants. She's gathering evidence. Be careful. Marcus deleted the message. He'd already been careful for 8 years. Careful hadn't worked. He pulled the velvet box from his coat pocket, the one containing the bracelet he'd kept since Zara was 7. The twin to the one she was wearing downstairs. If she was gathering evidence, she was building a case. Against Keystone. Against him. Both? Only one way to find out. Marcus pocketed the box and headed back to the elevator. The maid who'd learned to disappear was about to discover something she'd forgotten. Her father had built an empire predicting human behavior. And he'd spent 8 years learning hers. 9 years earlier, Marcus Caldwell stood in the rain and lied to 300 people. The casket was mahogany. Empty. Expensive. The kind of detail that made grief look respectable in photographs. Street. Patrick's Cathedral had donated the space, a favor Marcus didn't ask for but accepted because refusing would have raised questions. The priest spoke about loss. About faith. About a young woman taken too soon. Marcus didn't correct him. Zara wasn't dead. She was just gone. The idea for the funeral came from a crisis management consultant named Petra Voss, a woman with silver hair and a reputation for solving problems rich people created for themselves. Marcus had hired her 4 weeks after Zara disappeared, when the private investigators returned with nothing and the media started asking why a billionaire's daughter could vanish without a trace. Petra's advice was clinical. If she's alive and hiding, she's watching. If she's in trouble, this forces whoever has her to react. Either way, you get information. Grief is a currency. Spend it. So Marcus spent it. He stood at the podium and delivered a eulogy he didn't write, describing a daughter he couldn't find. To a crowd that believed a lie, cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled. Somewhere in the back, a woman sobbed, one of Zara's old teachers, maybe, or a family friend Marcus couldn't place. He scanned the crowd for Zara's face. She wasn't there. After the service, people approached with condolences that felt like additions. Politicians. Investors. Rivals wearing sympathy like cufflinks. Marcus shook hands. Nodded. Said, "Thank you," until the words lost meaning. Then he saw her. Not Zara. Someone else. A woman in a black coat standing at the edge of the cathedral steps, holding a phone aimed at the crowd. She wasn't crying. She wasn't praying. She was recording. Marcus caught her eye for a fraction of a second. She lowered the phone and disappeared into the rain. He found Petra afterward, standing under an awning, smoking a cigarette she probably shouldn't have been smoking on church property. "Did you see her?" Marcus asked. "The one filming?" "Yes." "Who was she?" Petra exhaled smoke. "Someone who knows Zara isn't dead." Marcus felt something crack in his chest. Not hope. Not yet, but the space where hope might grow if given room. "Can you find her?" "I can try. But Marcus, if someone's watching this closely, it means your daughter isn't just hiding. She's involved in something." "Involved in what?" Petra crushed the cigarette under her heel. "That's the part we need to figure out before someone else does." Flashback interrupt, back to present. Marcus stood in his hotel suite, staring at the rain streaking down the window. 9 years later, he finally had the answer Petra couldn't give him. Zara was involved in exposing the network that Marcus had accidentally funded. She wasn't a victim. She was a weapon aimed at the people who'd turned charity into commerce. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered without speaking. A voice, female, young, distorted through a modulator, came through. "You shouldn't have come back." Marcus kept his tone flat. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you're doing. Leave Rena alone. She doesn't need saving." "I'm not here to save her. I'm here to help her finish." A pause. Static. Then, prove it. The line went dead. Marcus set the phone down. His reflection stared back from the window, a man who'd spent a decade building algorithms that predicted market crashes and election outcomes but couldn't predict his own daughter. The modulated voice wasn't Zara. But it was someone close enough to her to know Marcus had returned. Which meant Zara had built a network of her own people who watched, gathered intelligence, and protected her from threats. Including him. Marcus opened his laptop and pulled up Bishop's file on the Langley's staff. 42 employees. 11 housekeepers. 4 matched profiles from the shelters, girls hired through Keystone, living in shared housing, working double shifts for wages that barely covered rent. One name stood out, Callista Rowe. Age 23. Hired 6 months after Rena Ray's. The girl who'd told him to request someone else if he wanted someone chatty. Marcus saved her photo. Then he opened a blank email and typed 4 words, "I'm not the enemy." He sent it to an encrypted address Bishop had traced to a server in Brooklyn. No name. No signature. Just the message. If Zara was watching, she'd know who it was from. And if she wasn't ready to trust him yet, at least she'd know he was paying attention this time. Zara Caldwell learned to disappear on a Tuesday in March, 3 weeks after her 19th birthday. She'd left the Tribeca loft at 6 a.m. with a backpack containing 3 changes of clothes, $800 in cash, and a burner phone she'd bought from a bodega in Chinatown. No laptop. No credit cards, nothing that could be traced. Her father would have called it poor operational security. Zara called it survival. The plan was simple: get to Newark. Find the shelter her friend Iris had mentioned before she vanished. Ask questions no one wanted to answer. Document everything. Iris had been her roommate at a group home in Jersey when Zara was 16, a temporary placement after her mother's death, before Marcus pulled strings to bring her back. Iris wasn't so lucky. She aged out of the system at 18 with a high school diploma and a referral to a transition program that promised job training and housing. 6 months later, Iris sent Zara a single text: "Don't trust the programs. They're not what they say." Then nothing. Zara tried calling. The number was disconnected. She tried visiting the shelter address Iris had mentioned. The building was demolished. She tried filing a missing persons report. The police said Iris wasn't missing, she'd signed a contract with a hospitality placement agency and moved for work. Case closed. Zara didn't believe it. So she did what her father had taught her: follow the data. She found Iris's contract buried in public records, a 20-page document full of legal jargon that essentially said, "You'll work where we tell you. Live where we tell you. And if you quit, you owe us for training, housing, and transportation costs you didn't know you were accumulating." Indentured servitude with a corporate logo. Zara traced the placement agency Keystone Community Solutions and found 17 other girls with identical contracts. All former foster youth. All placed through nonprofits that claimed to help vulnerable populations. One of those nonprofits was funded by the Caldwell Foundation. Her father's foundation. That's when Zara made the decision: she couldn't expose this from inside her father's world. She had to become invisible. Get hired through Keystone's network. Work alongside the girls trapped in it. Gather evidence from the inside. So she walked out of the loft and into a system designed to swallow people like her. Present day, the Langley, 3 p.m. Rena Reyes, Zara's ghost name, pushed the linen cart down the 4th-floor hallway, and tried not to think about the man in Suite 412. She'd recognized him immediately. Not because of his face, though that hadn't changed much: same sharp jaw, same unreadable expression. She recognized him because of the way he stood, perfectly still, like someone calculating variables in real time. Marcus Caldwell didn't do anything without a reason. Which meant his presence at the Langley wasn't coincidence. He'd found her. Zara finished restocking the cart and pulled out her phone. One text waiting. From Jay. "Your father checked in yesterday. Did you know?" Zara typed back, yes. What's the play? Good question. Running wasn't an option. She'd spent 2 years building this case, documenting payroll records, photographing contracts, recording conversations with managers who thought housekeepers were furniture. She was 3 weeks away from having enough evidence to hand to the federal prosecutor Jay had connected her with. If she ran now, the network would scatter. Girls would be moved. Records would be destroyed. And Keystone would find new ways to hide what they'd built. But if Marcus interfered, if he showed up with lawyers and money and his pathological need to fix things, he'd ruin everything. Zara had learned that her father's solutions always involved control. He'd try to buy justice, settle quietly, protect his reputation while dismantling just enough of the network to feel righteous. She needed him gone. Or her phone buzzed again. Different number. Unknown. She opened the message, "I'm not the enemy." No signature. No context. But Zara knew exactly who'd sent it. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she typed a reply, "Prove it. Meet me at the diner on 46th and 9th. Midnight. Come alone." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. If Marcus wanted back into her life, he'd have to earn it. And earning it meant doing something he'd never been good at, letting go of control and trusting someone else to be right. Zara pocketed her phone and returned to work. 2 more rooms before her shift ended. Then she'd meet with Jay to finalize the documents they'd been compiling, a 47-page dossier detailing every transaction, every placement, every girl who'd been funneled through Keystone's network. Including the girl whose face haunted Zara every time she closed her eyes. Mika Torres. Age 12. Current status, unknown. Mika had been placed in a group home 6 months ago after aging out of temporary foster care. The home was run by an operator connected to Keystone. Zara had been trying to locate her for 14 weeks. Every lead went cold. Every call went unanswered. But yesterday, Jay had intercepted a delivery manifest for the Langley. One of the names listed as part of the housekeeping overflow staff was M. Torres. Mika was here. In this building. Working as a housekeeper at 12 years old. And if Marcus Caldwell wanted to prove he wasn't the enemy, he'd help Zara get her out. The diner on 46th and 9th smelled like burnt coffee and decades of grease that no amount of cleaning could erase. Marcus arrived at 11:47 p.m. Early enough to assess exits, late enough to respect Zara's terms. The place was nearly empty. A trucker sat at the counter nursing something that might have been soup. A couple in the back booth whispered arguments they thought no one could hear. The waitress looked like she'd stopped caring about tips sometime during the Clinton administration. Marcus chose a booth with a clear view of the entrance and ordered coffee he wouldn't drink. Zara arrived at 12:03 a.m. She'd changed out of her uniform into jeans and a jacket that had seen better years. Her hair was still pulled back, but looser now, like she'd removed the armor just enough to breathe. She slid into the booth across from him without greeting. "You came alone?" she asked. "Yes." "No security? No lawyers lurking in cars outside?" "I said I'd come alone." Zara studied him the way a jeweler studies a stone for flaws. "You look older." "It's been 8 years. 9, she corrected. 9 years, 2 months, 16 days. Marcus absorbed the precision. She'd been counting. "You left without explanation." "I left a voicemail." "Don't look for me" isn't an explanation. It's an instruction. Zara leaned back against the cracked vinyl. "And yet here you are. Ignoring instructions. Tracking me down. Staying at the hotel where I work. Tell me, Marcus, is this about finding me, or controlling me?" The use of his first name stung more than it should have. When she was younger, she'd called him Dad with the casual ease of someone who believed love was unconditional. Now he was Marcus, a man with a name, not a role. "I'm not here to control you," he said carefully. "I'm here because I found out what you're doing. And I want to help. Help? Zara laughed without humor. You want to write a check? Make some calls. Fix it the way you fix everything, with money and leverage and just enough plausible deniability to keep your reputation intact. That's not. Your foundation donated $23 million to the network I'm trying to destroy. Zara cut in. Her voice stayed level, but her hands tightened around the edge of the table. 23 million. Do you know how many girls that funded? How many contracts were signed because nonprofits had your money to expand operations? Marcus felt the accusation land like a blade between ribs. I didn't know where the money went. You didn't ask. No, Marcus admitted. I didn't. The waitress appeared with a pot of coffee neither of them had ordered. She filled 2 cups and vanished without a word. Zara wrapped her hands around hers but didn't drink. I need to know something, Marcus said. The funeral, did you see it? Zara's jaw tightened. I watched it online. From a library in Newark. Why didn't you reach out? Let me know you were alive? Because I knew what you'd do. Zara's eyes met his steady, unflinching. You would have hired investigators. Pulled me out. Locked me in some safe place while you handled things. And the girls who didn't have billionaire fathers? They'd still be trapped. Marcus wanted to argue. He couldn't. She was right. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said finally. I'm asking you to let me help finish what you started. Why should I trust you? Marcus reached into his coat and pulled out a thin folder. He slid it across the table. Because I already started. Zara opened it. Inside, bank records showing frozen accounts tied to Keystone Community Solutions. Legal filings for audits of 3 nonprofits. A list of shell companies Marcus's team had traced back to a single offshore account in the Caymans. I've been working on this for 3 months, Marcus said. Since I found the connection between my foundation and Keystone. I didn't know you were involved until yesterday. Zara flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. Then she looked up. This is good work. But it's not enough. Keystone will just restructure. Move the operations. Change the names. They've done it before. Then we don't just freeze accounts, Marcus said. We build a case that puts people in prison. We. Zara's eyebrow arched. You have the inside access. I have the resources. Together, there's a girl, Zara interrupted. 12 years old. Her name is Mika Torres. She's working as a housekeeper at the Langley right now. Keystone placed her there 6 months ago through a group home that doesn't ask questions. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. 12. Child labor laws don't apply when you call it skills training and pay the operator instead of the kid. Zara's voice hardened. If you want to help, get her out. Tonight. Before they move her somewhere we can't find. Marcus pulled out his phone. Where is she now? Staff housing. Queens. Same building where most of the housekeepers live. Zara recited the address from memory. But you can't just show up with money and lawyers. These people have systems. If Mika disappears, they'll know someone's onto them. They'll scatter the other girls. Destroy records. Then what do you suggest? Zara leaned forward. You're staying at the Langley. Request additional housekeeping services. Specifically request Mika for a project, something that keeps her in your suite for several hours tomorrow. I'll handle the rest. What's the rest? You don't need to know. You just need to keep her safe and visible while I make sure her case file gets into the right hands. Marcus studied his daughter, this woman who'd learned to dismantle systems he'd accidentally built. And after Mika? After Mika, we take down the whole network. Every hotel. Every shelter. Every contractor. Every politician who took donations and looked the other way. Zara's voice dropped to daughter. Something almost gentle. But we do it my way. Not yours. Agreed? Marcus extended his hand across the table. Agreed. Zara looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she shook it once firm, brief, businesslike. Don't make me regret this, she said. I won't. Zara stood to leave. At the door, she paused. Marcus? Yes? Thank you. For looking. Then she was gone, swallowed by the city that had taught her to disappear. Marcus sat alone in the diner, staring at the cooling coffee. For the first time in 9 years, he felt something that might have been hope. Tomorrow, he'd save one girl. And then he'd help his daughter burn the empire that had swallowed her. Mika Torres had stopped dreaming about rescue. She'd learned that lesson 3 months into her placement at the Langley. When another girl, Sophia, 16, from the Bronx tried to run. Sophia made it 6 blocks before the operators found her. She came back bruised and silent. 2 weeks later, she was transferred to a different hotel. No one knew where. After that, Mika stopped looking at exit signs. Stopped memorizing subway routes. Stopped wondering if anyone was coming. She just worked. Thursday mornings were always the same, wake at 5:30 a.m. in the Queen's apartment she shared with 15 other girls. Shower in shifts. Eat toast if there was bread, nothing if there wasn't. Take the bus to the Langley. Clock in by 7 a.m. or lose an hour's pay. But this Thursday, Mrs. Rodriguez, the head housekeeper with the tight bun and eyes that missed nothing, pulled Mika aside before she could grab her cart. You've been requested, Mrs. Rodriguez said. Mika's stomach dropped. Requested meant special assignment. Special assignment meant something had gone wrong or someone wanted something she didn't want to give. By who? Mika asked, keeping her voice small. Guest in 412. Says he needs help organizing files for a business presentation. You'll work his suite today. Alone. Alone. The word felt like a trap. I usually do rooms on the 3rd floor, Mika tried. Mrs. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. It's not a choice, honey. He asked for someone detail-oriented. I told him you were the best we had. Don't make me look like a liar. Mika nodded. Because what else could she do? She took the elevator to the 4th floor, knocked twice on suite 412, and waited. The man who opened the door didn't look like the other guests. No expensive watch. No cologne that smelled like money. Just a gray suit, neat but not flashy, and an expression that reminded Mika of her 3rd-grade teacher, the one who'd noticed when she came to school hungry. Mika Torres? He asked. Yes, sir. Come in. I'm Marcus Caldwell. I appreciate you helping with this on short notice. Mika stepped inside and immediately assessed the room, habit from months of survival. 1 exit. Windows that didn't file it. Open fully. A desk covered in papers that actually looked like work, not the usual pretense guests used when they wanted something other than housekeeping. I'm organizing case files, Marcus said, gesturing to the desk. I need someone to help sort them by date and category. It's tedious, but I'll pay you directly for your time. $50 an hour. Cash. Mika blinked. $50 an hour was more than she made in a day. I'm not supposed to accept tips, sir. It's not a tip. It's payment for work. Marcus pulled out a chair. Sit. I'll explain what needs doing. Mika sat because refusing felt more dangerous than agreeing. Marcus handed her a stack of folders and explained a simple sorting system. Then he left her alone and moved to the couch with a laptop, working quietly. For the first hour, Mika sorted in silence. The files were real contracts, financial records, audit reports. She recognized some of the names: Keystone Community Solutions, Horizon Initiative. Companies connected to the operators who controlled her housing, her paycheck, her life. Her hands slowed. Why did this man have files on them? You're doing great, Marcus said from the couch, not looking up. Take a break if you need one. There's water in the fridge. Mika didn't take a break. But she started reading the documents more carefully. One file detailed payroll discrepancies at hotels using Keystone contractors. Another mapped housing arrangements for workers, including the address in Queens where Mika lived. A third listed names, girls who'd been placed through the system and then disappeared from records. Sophia's name was on that list. Mika's pulse quickened. She glanced at Marcus. He was typing something, seemingly unaware of what she'd found. "Sir?" Mika's voice came out smaller than she intended. Marcus looked up. "Yes? Why do you have files on Keystone?" Marcus set the laptop aside. His expression shifted, still calm, but with an edge of something Mika couldn't name. Anger? Determination? "Because I'm building a case against them," he said simply. "And I think you might be able to help." Mika's throat tightened. "I can't. If they find out I talked to anyone, they won't find out. I promise." "You can't promise that," Mika said, surprising herself with the sharpness. "You don't know what they do to people who talk." Marcus nodded slowly. "You're right. I don't. But I know someone who does." He pulled out his phone and made a call. 2 rings, then, "It's me. I'm with Mika. She's safe. Can you come up?" A pause. Then Marcus hung up and looked at Mika. "Someone wants to meet you. Someone who's been looking for you for a long time." 3 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Marcus opened it. Zara stepped inside, still in her housekeeper uniform, hair pinned back, face carefully neutral. But when she saw Mika, something in her expression cracked. "Hey," Zara said softly. "Remember me?" Mika stared. She did remember. Months ago, when she'd first arrived at the Langley, a housekeeper named Rena had helped her fix a cart with a broken wheel. Rena had asked quiet questions. Where Mika lived, who'd placed her, whether she was okay. Mika had been too afraid to answer honestly. "You're Rena," Mika whispered. "My real name's Zara." She crouched to Mika's eye level. "And I've been trying to find you since the day they moved you into that building in Queens. I'm sorry it took this long." Mika felt something loosen in her chest, something she'd locked away 3 months ago when Sophia disappeared. "Are you going to get me out?" "Yes," Zara said. "But I need your help first. I need you to tell me everything you remember about how you got here. Every name. Every place. Every person who signed papers or made promises. Can you do that?" Mika looked at Marcus, then back at Zara. 2 strangers offering something that sounded like hope. She'd stopped believing in hope. But she hadn't stopped wanting it. "If I help," Mika said slowly, "what happens to the other girls? The ones still in the building?" Zara's jaw tightened. "We get them out too. All of them. I promise." Mika took a breath. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "I'll tell you everything." Mika talked for 3 hours. She told them about the group home in Brooklyn, the one with the social worker who smiled too much and asked too few questions. About the day a woman in a blazer arrived with a clipboard and explained that Mika qualified for a skills development program that would provide housing and job training. "She said I'd learn hospitality management," Mika said, staring at her hands. "That I could work my way up to supervisor positions. Make real money. All I had to do was sign the contract." "Did you read it?" Marcus asked gently. Mika shook her head. "It was 20 pages. The woman said it was standard. That all the girls signed them. And the social worker, Miss Chen, she was right there, nodding like it was fine. So I signed." Zara pulled out her phone and showed Mika a photo of a document. "This contract?" Mika's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I've been collecting them," Zara said. "Every girl at the Langley has the same one. Different names, same terms. Did anyone explain what you were signing?" The woman said I'd work at hotels. 40 hours a week. Minimum wage. Housing included. Mika's voice dropped. But when I got to Queens, they said housing wasn't free. Neither was the uniform. Or the bus pass. Or the training sessions I never got. By the time they finished taking deductions, I was making maybe $3 an hour. And I couldn't leave because I owed them money for all of it. Marcus typed notes on his laptop. Who collected the money? A man named Victor. He came to the apartment every Friday. If anyone was short, he'd add it to their tab. With interest. Mika hesitated. One girl tried to argue about the math. He slapped her. Right in front of everyone. After that, nobody argued. Zara's expression hardened. Victor have a last name? Puentes. Victor Puentes. He worked for someone named Mr. Ochoa. I heard them talking once. Mr. Ochoa runs the whole operation. All the apartments. All the placements. Marcus's fingers stilled on the keyboard. He pulled up a file and turned the screen toward Mika. This him? The photo showed a man in his 50s, graying hair, expensive suit, standing outside a restaurant in Manhattan. Mika nodded. That's Mr. Ochoa. He came to the apartment once. Told us we were lucky to have jobs. That girls like us usually ended up homeless or worse. Zara clenched her jaw but kept her voice calm. Did he ever mention where the money went? He said something about the foundation once. That we should be grateful because charity money paid for our opportunities. Mika looked at Marcus. Is that your foundation? The question landed like an accusation. Marcus met her eyes. Yes. My foundation gave money to programs that were supposed to help girls like you. I didn't know it was being used like this. But that doesn't make it less my responsibility. Mika studied him, this man in the expensive suit, who didn't act like the other men in expensive suits. Are you going to help us? Or are you just collecting information for lawyers? I'm going to help you, Marcus said firmly. And then I'm going to make sure the people who did this face consequences. Real ones. Not settlements, not quiet resignations. Prison. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next. Mika wanted to believe him. But belief required trust, and trust required proof. There's something else, Mika said. About Sophia. Zara leaned forward. The girl who ran? Yeah. After they brought her back, she told me things. About where they took her when she tried to leave. It wasn't just a different hotel. It was, Mika's voice caught. It was a house. Upstate somewhere. She said there were other girls there. Younger ones. They weren't doing housekeeping. They were, she wouldn't say exactly. But she was scared in a different way. Like she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. The room went silent. Marcus exchanged a look with Zara. The kind of look that said, this is bigger than we thought. Do you remember anything Sophia said about the location? Zara asked. Any details at all? She said there were mountains. And a lake. And the house had a blue roof. She saw it from the van when they drove her back. Mika squeezed her eyes shut, trying to remember. Oh, and she said there was a sign on the highway. Something about a state park. She tried to take a picture but they took her phone. Marcus pulled up a map on his laptop. How far upstate? Maybe 3 hours? She said they left at night and got back in the morning. Zara stood abruptly. We need to find that house. If there are younger girls there, we will, Marcus said. But first, we get Mika somewhere safe. Then we build the case. Properly. So when we bring this to prosecutors, it sticks. Where am I supposed to go? Mika asked. I can't go back to the apartment. If I don't show up for my shift tomorrow, they'll know something's wrong. And if they find me, you're not going back, Zara said firmly. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Jay? It's me. I need the safe house. Tonight. One girl, age 12, high risk. A pause. No, not through official channels. Keystone's connected to half the social services offices in the city. We do this off book or we don't do it at all. She hung up and looked at Mika. You're going somewhere Keystone can't reach. A place run by people who actually give a damn. You'll stay there until we finish dismantling this network. Okay? Mika nodded slowly. And then what? Then, Zara said, you get to decide what happens next. No contracts. No deductions. Just choices. For the first time since entering Suite 412, Mika let herself believe that maybe, just maybe someone was finally paying attention. The safe house wasn't what Mika expected. She'd imagined something from movies, sterile rooms, armed guards, people asking questions through one-way mirrors. Instead, Jay drove them to a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn with flower boxes in the windows and a porch light that actually worked. This is it? Mika asked from the back seat. Jay, a woman in her 30s with close-cropped hair and a scar that ran from her temple to her jaw, turned off the engine. This is it. No security cameras. No guest logs. Just women who've been where you are and decided to build something different. Zara opened Mika's door. The woman who runs this place is named Teresa. She's former FBI. Retired after she realized the system wasn't built to protect people like you. So she built her own system. Inside, the house smelled like fresh paint and coffee. A woman with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses perched on her nose looked up from a laptop at the kitchen table. You must be Mika, Teresa said, standing. She didn't offer a handshake or a hug, just a nod of acknowledgement. Jay told me your situation. You'll stay in the room, upstairs, second door on the right. There are 3 other girls here right now. They know the rules, no real names outside this house, no phones with GPS, no social media. You follow those rules, you're safe. Understood? Mika nodded. Good. You hungry? Mika realized she hadn't eaten since the toast that morning. Yes, ma'am. Teresa gestured to the fridge. Help yourself. We cook communally here. If you eat it, you replace it. If you make a mess, you clean it. If you need something, you ask. We're not running a charity, we're running a community. Big difference. Zara walked Mika upstairs to her room. It was small but clean, a bed with a real mattress, a desk, a window with curtains that closed all the way. Mika set down her bag, the one she'd grabbed from the Queen's apartment when Jay created a distraction for the operators, and sat on the bed. How long do I stay here? Mika asked. As long as it takes to make sure Keystone can't touch you. Zara sat beside her. Marcus is working with federal prosecutors to freeze their accounts and build criminal charges. But these things take time. Weeks, maybe months. And the other girls? The ones still in the apartment? We're working on it. But we need your testimony first. Once we have enough evidence, we move on everyone at once. If we pull girls out one at a time, Keystone will notice and relocate the others before we can reach them. Mika's chest tightened. So they're still there. Still working. For now, Zara said. I know it's not fair. I know it feels like we're leaving them behind. But if we move too fast, we lose everything. Do you trust me? Mika looked at this woman who'd spent months pretending to be a housekeeper just to gather evidence. I don't know yet. But I want to. That's honest, Zara said. I'll take it. While Mika settled into the safe house, Marcus was 3 blocks away in a rented office space that had been converted into a war room. Maps covered the walls. Red pins marked hotel locations connected to Keystone. Blue pins marked shelters. Yellow pins marked the apartments where girls lived. Lines connected them like a spider's web. Bishop, the forensic accountant Marcus had hired months ago, stood at a whiteboard, marker in hand. We've traced 12 shell companies so far. All owned by a holding company registered in Delaware. That holding company is owned by another company in the Caymans. And that company is owned by a trust. Whose trust? Marcus asked. Still working on it. But whoever set this up knew what they were doing. This isn't amateur hour. This is sophisticated financial engineering designed to hide money and liability. Marcus stared at the web of connections. Somewhere in this tangle was the person who'd built the machine that swallowed girls like Mika. How long until you crack it? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. I need to subpoena bank records, and that requires a judge who won't tip off the targets. I know a judge, Marcus said, federal district. She owes me a favor. Bishop raised an eyebrow. What kind of favor? The kind where I funded her daughter's medical treatment when insurance denied coverage. She's clean. And she hates human trafficking cases because her sister was a victim 20 years ago. Then call her. Because once we freeze these accounts, Keystone's entire operation collapses. No money means no rent payments on the apartments. No payroll to the operators. No leverage over the girls. Marcus pulled out his phone. But before he could dial, it buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. He answered. Yes? A voicemail, accent that suggested money and private schools came through. Mr. Caldwell. My name is Elias Ochoa. I believe you've been making inquiries about my business operations. Marcus's pulse didn't change. He hit the speaker button and mouthed to Bishop, *trace this. Mr. Ochoa. I wasn't aware labor trafficking qualified as a business operation. A soft chuckle. You misunderstand. I provide employment opportunities to young women who would otherwise have none. Job training. Housing. Structure. Many of them thank me. The ones who don't get slapped by your enforcer, Victor Puentes. Silence. Then, you've been talking to people you shouldn't talk to. And you've been exploiting children. I'd say we're both guilty of poor decisions. I'm calling as a courtesy, Mr. Caldwell. To inform you that your involvement in matters that don't concern you is noted. And to suggest that billionaires with reputations to protect should be careful about the fights they pick. Is that a threat? It's advice. Your foundation's donation records are public. If certain journalists were to investigate how that money was spent and misrepresented, it could raise uncomfortable questions. Tax fraud. Conspiracy. Misuse of charitable funds. I imagine the IRS would be very interested. Marcus leaned back in his chair. So would the FBI. I imagine they'd be interested in your operation once I hand them the evidence I've been collecting. Bank records. Contracts. 12 years old, by the way. That's not labor trafficking. That's child abuse. Federal prosecutors love cases like that. Another pause. You're making a mistake. I've made plenty. This isn't one of them. We'll see. The line went dead. Bishop looked up from his laptop. Got it. Call came from a burner, but it pinged a tower in Midtown. He's close. Marcus stood. He's rattled. That means we're close to something he can't afford to lose. Double down on the financial trace. And get me everything you can find on Elias Ochoa property records, business licenses, traffic violations, parking tickets. I want to know every place he's been in the last 5 years. You think he'll come after you? I think he'll come after Zara. Or Mika. Or anyone connected to this case. Which is why we need to move faster. Marcus grabbed his coat. I'm going to see the judge. Tonight. Judge Marianne Winters lived in a modest townhouse in Park Slope, the kind of neighborhood where brownstones cost millions but nobody talked about it. Marcus arrived at 9 p.m., without calling ahead. He knocked twice. Marianne opened the door in a cardigan and reading glasses, holding a glass of red wine. Marcus Caldwell. I was wondering when you'd show up. You were expecting me? A man like you doesn't go quiet for 8 years and then suddenly reappear in New York without a reason. Come in. But you're making coffee, not drinking my wine. Inside, the townhouse was lined with bookshelves, law journals, case files, novels stacked in precarious towers. Marianne gestured to the kitchen table and sat. Marcus made coffee he didn't want and joined her. Healthy. Thriving. Thanks to you. Marianne studied him over her glasses. Which is why I'm listening instead of throwing you out for showing up unannounced. What do you need? Marcus pulled out a folder condensed version of everything Bishop had compiled. Subpoenas. For bank records tied to a network that's trafficking girls through hospitality contracts. I need them fast, and I need them sealed so the targets don't get tipped off. Marianne flipped through the folder. Her expression darkened with each page. Keystone Community Solutions. I've heard of them. They've placed girls through family court before. Some of the judges in that division think they're legitimate. They're not. They're using charitable donations, including from my foundation, to fund a labor trafficking operation that spans 5 states. I have testimony from a 12-year-old girl, who's been working as a housekeeper for 6 months. And I have evidence of at least one location upstate where younger children are being held. Marianne set down the folder. How solid is your evidence? Solid enough to convince federal prosecutors. But I need financial records. To connect the dots between the shell companies and the people running them. That requires subpoenas. And you came to me because you're one of 3 federal judges in this district who isn't compromised by campaign donations from nonprofits in this network. I checked. Marianne smiled grimly. You really did your homework. I always do. She stood and walked to her desk, pulling out a legal pad. If I sign these subpoenas, I'm making enemies. Powerful ones. Nonprofits have lobbyists. Lobbyists have politicians. Politicians have ways of making judges' lives difficult. I know. And you're asking me to do it anyway? I'm asking you to do it because your sister didn't have anyone willing to fight for her. These girls do. They have me. And now they have you. Marianne was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up a pen. I'll need 48 hours to draft the orders and coordinate with the U.S. Attorney's Office. But Marcus, once I sign these, there's no walking it back. If your evidence falls apart, you're exposed. If Keystone's lawyers are better than you think, you lose. And if someone gets hurt because you moved too fast, I know the risks. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're betting everything, your reputation, your fortune, your relationship with your daughter, on a case that could collapse if one witness recants or one document gets suppressed. Marcus met her eyes. I spent 8 years building algorithms that predicted human behavior. I got very good at it. But I failed to predict that my own money would fund something this evil. So yes, I'm betting everything. Because if I don't, I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I had the resources to stop it and chose comfort instead. Marianne nodded slowly. All right. I'll have the subpoenas ready by Saturday. You'll serve them Monday morning. Coordinate with the FBI, so they can execute search warrants simultaneously. If you're going to do this, do it loud and do it fast. Don't give them time to destroy evidence. Marcus stood. Thank you, Marianne. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when those girls are safe and the people responsible are in prison. She walked him to the door. And Marcus? Watch your back. Men like Elias Ochoa don't go down quietly. Neither do I. Zara was back at the Langley, finishing her shift. She'd return to maintain appearances. If she vanished the same night Mika did, Keystone would know something was wrong. She scrubbed a bathtub that didn't need scrubbing and tried not to think about the 16 girls still living in the Queen's apartment. Girls who'd wake up tomorrow and go to work and have no idea that rescue was coming. If everything went according to plan. If Marcus didn't screw it up. If Ochoa didn't retaliate first. Her phone buzzed. Text from J. ****. Teresa says Mika's settling in. She asked about you. Asterisk asterisk Zara typed back, asterisk asterisk, tell her I'm fine. And that we're close. Asterisk 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 how close? Asterisk 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 subpoenas in 48 hours. Raids Monday morning. It's happening. Asterisk 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 asterisk, you sound like you don't believe it. Asterisk asterisk Zara stared at the message. She didn't know what she believed anymore. For 2 years, she'd worked alone gathering evidence, documenting abuse, mapping the network. She'd convinced herself that justice was a solo mission. That trusting anyone else meant losing control. Then Marcus showed up. And now she had to trust that the man who'd funded this nightmare could also dismantle it. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. Unknown. She almost didn't answer. Then instinct made her pick up. Hello? A voice Victor Puentes, she recognized the accent came through. Rena. Or should I say Zara? Her blood went cold. Who is this? You know who this is. And I know what you've been doing. Photographs. Asking questions. Stealing documents. Did you think we wouldn't notice? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult me. You took Mika Torres tonight. She didn't show up for bed check. And now one of my best workers is missing because you decided to play hero. Zara kept her voice steady. If you're so sure I took her, why are you calling instead of showing up? Because I want to give you a chance to fix your mistake. Bring her back. Tonight. And we forget this ever happened. You keep your job, Mika keeps hers, everybody's happy. And if I don't? Then we make it very difficult for you and your billionaire friend. We have lawyers too. And we have connections. You think one missing girl is going to bring down an operation this big? You're delusional. Zara smiled even though he couldn't see it. We'll see. She hung up. Then she called Marcus. They know. Puentes just called me. They know. Mika's gone, and they know we're connected. Marcus's voice came through calm and even. Then we accelerate. I'm calling the U.S. attorney right now. We move the raids up. This weekend instead of Monday. Can you do that? I'm about to find out. Not subscribing yet? You're 3 steps behind what's coming next. Saturday morning, 5:47 a.m. FBI agents in tactical gear surrounded 3 locations simultaneously, the Queen's apartment building where Keystone housed its workers, the Langley Hotel's administrative offices, and a warehouse in Long Island City where payroll records were stored. Marcus watched from an unmarked van parked 2 blocks from the Queen's building. Beside him sat Agent Carolyn Hayes, lead investigator on human trafficking cases for the FBI's New York field office. Your judge came through fast, Hayes said, reviewing the subpoenas on her tablet. These are airtight. Whoever drafted them knew exactly what they were doing. Judge Winters doesn't do half measures. Neither do you, apparently. Hayes looked at him. You know this is going to cost you, right? Once word gets out that your foundation funded these operations, even unknowingly, your reputation takes a hit. Donors will bail. Board members will resign. Competitors will use it against you. I know. And you're okay with that? Marcus thought about Mika's face when she'd asked if he was just collecting information for lawyers. About Zara's voice when she'd said, asterisk. You didn't ask where the money went, asterisk. I'm okay with it, he said. Hayes's radio crackled. Asterisk asterisk, Team 1 in position. Ready to breach on your signal. Asterisk asterisk, she pressed the transmit button. All teams, execute. The agents moved like water, fast, coordinated, unstoppable. Battering rams hit doors. Voices shouted, asterisk asterisk, FBI. Search warrant. Asterisk asterisk, Marcus couldn't see inside the building, but he heard the chaos through Hayes's radio. Girls screaming. Operators yelling. Commands for everyone to stay calm, put their hands where agents could see them, sit down and don't move. Team 1, 16 females on site, ages 12 to 24. All appear to be workers. No injuries so far. Team 2, administrative offices secured. 5 subjects in custody. Seizing computers and files now. Team 3. Warehouse secure. Payroll records located. Preliminary count shows documentation for over 300 workers across 12 states. Hayes nodded with satisfaction. This is a good day. Marcus didn't feel victorious yet. Raids were the beginning, not the end. They still needed prosecutions. Convictions. And they needed to find the house upstate. His phone buzzed. Text from Zara, ****, I'm at the Queen's building. Girls are terrified. They think they're being arrested. ****, Marcus showed the message to Hayes. Can your agents clarify that these girls aren't suspects? Hayes spoke into her radio. All teams, workers are victims, not perpetrators. Treat them accordingly. Victim advocates should be on site within the hour. Marcus texted back, ****. They're being treated as victims. Advocates coming. Are you okay? Zara, ****. I'm fine. But some of these girls are asking where Mika is. What do I tell them? Marcus, ****. Tell them she's safe. And that they will be too. Zara stood in the crowded living room, surrounded by 16 girls in various states of panic. Some were crying. Some sat in stunned silence. One, a girl named Paula, 19, from Ecuador, grabbed Zara's arm. Are they going to deport us? Paula whispered. Some of us don't have papers. If they send us back. They're not deporting anyone, Zara said firmly. You're victims of a crime. That gives you protections, immigration won't touch you. An FBI agent, young, female, with a kind face approached. I'm Agent Reyes. I know this is scary. But you're not in trouble. We're here to help. Within the hour, advocates will arrive. They'll explain your rights and your options. Some of you may qualify for visas that allow you to stay in the U.S. while we prosecute the people who exploited you. Others may need temporary housing. We'll figure it out together. Okay? Paula nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. What about our things? Our money? Your personal belongings will be returned. As for wages, you're owed. We've frozen Keystone's accounts. You'll be able to file claims once the criminal case is resolved. Another girl, barely 16, with a bruise on her cheek, raised her hand like she was in school. What about Victor? He said if we ever talked to police, he'd find us. He said he'd hurt our families. Agent Reyes crouched to the girl's level. Victor Puentes is in custody right now. He can't hurt you or your family. And if he tries to contact you from jail, that's another charge. You're safe. Zara watched the girls' faces shift from terror to something that might have been hope. It wasn't relief, not yet, but it was the beginning of belief that maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was ending. Agent Hayes stood in the Long Island City warehouse, surrounded by filing cabinets that stretched to the ceiling. Her team had already bagged and tagged 50 boxes of documents. How much are we looking at? Marcus asked, stepping inside with a visitor's badge clipped to his coat. Enough to prosecute everyone from the ground up. Payroll records. Contracts. Rent receipts. Wire transfers. This isn't just evidence, it's a blueprint of the entire operation. Marcus scanned the rows of cabinets. Any mention of the upstate location? Hayes pulled out a ledger and flipped to a flagged page. Property lease under the name Horizon Retreat Services. Address in Ulster County. Lease payments match the timeline Sophia described. What's the property listed as? Youth Rehabilitation Center. Licensed by the state for at-risk teens. Hayes's jaw tightened. Which means it passed inspections. Someone signed off on this. Marcus felt cold settle in his chest. When do we hit it? Already in motion. Local FBI office is coordinating with state police. They'll execute the warrant within the hour. I want to be there. Hayes shook her head. Not happening. You're a civilian. This is an active operation. Those are children in that house. My foundation's money helped put them there. I need to see it. Hayes studied him. You want to bear witness? Yes. She sighed. Fine. But you stay in the van. You don't exit the vehicle. You don't interfere. You're an observer. Clear? Clear. Ulster County, New York. 7:23 a.m. The house sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by trees that hadn't been trimmed in years. A sign by the driveway read, **** Horizon Retreat Services, Building Futures, One Life at a Time. ***. Marcus stared at it from the FBI van parked a quarter-mile away. The slogan made his stomach turn. Agent Hayes spoke into her radio, all units in position. Warrant is active. Move on my mark. Beside Marcus, a state trooper monitored thermal imaging on a laptop, 12 heat signatures inside. Second floor, eastern wing. Looks like they're grouped together, probably sleeping quarters. Any adults? Hayes asked. 2 signatures on the first floor. Kitchen area. Hayes nodded. That matches intel. Staff rotates in 12-hour shifts. Morning shift should be 2 supervisors. She pressed her radio. Teams, we have minors on site. Approach is non-lethal. Priority is securing the children without trauma. Go. Marcus watched through binoculars as agents emerged from the tree line, silent, coordinated, faces covered. They breached the front and back doors simultaneously. Voices erupted through Hayes's radio. Shouting. Commands. Then a woman's voice screaming, ****. They're just kids. You can't take them. ****. Hayes responded calmly, "Ma'am, put your hands where we can see them. You're being detained under suspicion of child labor trafficking and false imprisonment." ****. False imprisonment? These girls are in a rehabilitation program. We're helping them. ****. Then you'll have plenty of time to explain that in federal court. Hands behind your back. ****. Marcus's binoculars tracked movement in the second-floor windows. Small faces appeared, girls, some barely teenagers. Staring down at the agents flooding the property. One girl pressed her palm against the glass. Marcus thought of Mika doing the same thing in that Queen's apartment. Team 2 reporting, second floor secure. We have 11 girls, ages 10 to 16. All appear malnourished. 2 have visible injuries, bruising on arms and legs. Requesting medical immediately. Marcus closed his eyes. 10 years old. Children who should have been in school were being held in a house that pretended to help them. Hayes spoke into her radio. EMTs are standing by. Get those girls outside and triaged. Document everything: injuries, living conditions, statements. This needs to be airtight. The laptop beside Marcus showed thermal signatures moving downstairs, agents escorting the girls out. He watched them emerge one by one, wrapped in blankets agents had brought. Blinking in the morning light like people who'd been underground too long. One girl, tall, thin, maybe 14, broke away from the group and ran toward the tree line. An agent caught her gently, crouching to her level, speaking words Marcus couldn't hear. The girl collapsed into sobs. She probably thinks she's in trouble, Hayes said quietly. Happens a lot in these cases. They've been told for so long that authorities will arrest them or deport them that rescue feels like punishment. Marcus's jaw tightened. How long do you think they've been here? Based on the lease records? This location's been active for 18 months. But some of these girls may have been moved from other sites before that. Hayes pulled up a file on her tablet. Keystone operated at least 4 other retreat centers in the last 5 years. All shut down after complaints, then reopened under new names. This one's the longest running. Because it's remote, Marcus said. Harder to inspect. Easier to hide. Exactly. The radio crackled again, asterisk asterisk. Team 3 reporting from basement. You need to see this. Asterisk asterisk Hayes frowned. What'd you find? Asterisk asterisk, records. Filing cabinets full of them. Intake forms, medical files, disciplinary reports. And photographs. Hundreds of them. Asterisk asterisk Marcus and Hayes exchanged a look. She spoke into the radio, secure. Everything. Nobody touches anything without gloves. I'm coming in. She turned to Marcus. Stay here. I need to see it. No. You don't. Trust me. But Marcus was already opening the van door. Hayes grabbed his arm. Marcus. If what's in that basement is what I think it is, you don't want those images in your head. Let my team handle it. My foundation funded this place, Marcus said, voice flat. I need to see exactly what I paid for. Hayes studied him for a long moment. Then she released his arm. Fine. But you touch nothing. And if you're going to vomit, do it outside. The basement smelled like mildew and old paper. Metal filing cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with years, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Agent Torres, the one who'd called Hayes down, stood beside an open cabinet, latex gloves on. Face grim. We've got intake forms documenting every girl who passed through here. Names, ages, placement sources. Most came from group homes or foster systems. All were referred through Keystone. Hayes flipped through a file. These medical forms, they're documenting injuries but attributing them to self-harm or pre-existing conditions. Classic cover-up. Marcus moved to another cabinet. Inside, photographs. Polaroids, mostly. Girls standing against a white wall, holding numbered cards like mugshots. Dates written on the bottom in marker. He pulled one out. A girl, maybe 12, eyes hollow, hair cut short. The date, March 2021. 2 years ago. What are these for? Marcus asked. Torres's expression darkened. We're not sure yet. Could be documentation for internal tracking. Could be something worse. We'll need forensic analysis to determine if these were distributed or sold. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. Sold. It's a possibility we have to consider. Some trafficking networks document victims for Torres stopped. I'm not going into details. But yeah. It's a possibility. Hayes closed the file cabinet. Bag everything. I want this entire basement processed as a crime scene. Photos, fingerprints, DNA if we can get it. And find me a list of every staff member who worked here in the last 3 years. Already on it, Torres said. Preliminary list shows 8 regular employees. All hired through a temp agency connected to Keystone. None of them have backgrounds in child services or rehabilitation. 2 have priors, 1 for assault, 1 for fraud. Marcus stared at the photographs scattered across the table. Faces staring back at him. Children who'd been catalogued like inventory. How many girls total? He asked. Torres checked a spreadsheet on his tablet. Based on intake forms, 43 girls were placed here between January 2021 and now. 11 are currently on site. The other 32 were transferred to alternative placements. 10. Where? That's the problem. The transfer records don't list destinations. Just dates and authorization codes. Could be other facilities. Could be private placements. Could be dead ends, Marcus finished. Torres nodded. We'll trace them. But it's going to take time. Hayes's radio crackled, ***, Agent Hayes, we've got a situation. One of the girls is asking for someone named Sophia. Says Sophia was here last year. Says she needs to talk to whoever's in charge. ***, Hayes pressed transmit. Bring her to me. And get a victim advocate on site now. She looked at Marcus. You should go back to the van. No. Marcus, I'm staying. If that girl has information about Sophia, I need to hear it. Zara's been looking for her for months. Hayes sighed. Fine. But you let me do the talking. The girl's name was Amara. 15 years old. Originally from the Bronx. She'd been placed at Horizon Retreat after aging out of temporary foster care with nowhere else to go. She sat in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, hands shaking as she held a bottle of water she hadn't opened. Hayes crouched beside her. Amara, I'm Agent Hayes with the FBI. You're safe now. Nobody here is going to hurt you. I heard you were asking about someone named Sophia. Amara nodded, eyes darting to Marcus. Who's he? A concerned party. He's helping with the investigation. Is it okay if he listens? Amara shrugged. I guess. Hayes softened her voice. Can you tell me about Sophia? When did you meet her? Last summer. She got transferred here from some hotel in the city. She was older than most of us, maybe 19. She tried to run once before and they sent her here as punishment. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. Punishment. Did Sophia tell you why she ran? Hayes asked. She said the hotel was using girls for more than just housekeeping. That some guests paid extra for private services. Amara's voice dropped. She wouldn't say exactly what that meant, but I could guess. Hayes's expression hardened. Did that happen here? Were any of you forced into? No, Amara said quickly. Here it was just work. Cleaning, laundry, cooking. They made us work 12-hour days and didn't pay us, but they didn't. It wasn't like that. Sophia said this place was better than where she'd been. That's why she stopped trying to run. Where is Sophia now? Marcus asked, unable to stay silent. Amara looked at him. I don't know. One morning she was just gone. The supervisors said she got transferred to a family placement program. But Sophia told me the night before that if she ever disappeared, it meant something bad happened. She made me promise to tell someone. Tell someone what? Amara pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, worn, stained, barely holding together. She gave me this. Made me hide it. Said if anyone ever came looking, I should give it to them. Hayes took the paper with gloved hands and unfolded it carefully. Inside, a hand-drawn map. Streets, buildings, an address in Manhattan. And a name, ***. Elias Ochoa. ***. Below that, in Sophia's handwriting, ***, he runs everything. If you want the truth, start here. ***, Marcus stared at the address. It was a building in the financial district, expensive real estate, the kind of place billionaires kept offices they never visited. Hayes looked at Marcus. You recognize this? I know the building. It's mixed-use offices, private residences. Ochoa must have space there. Then that's our next target. Hayes folded the paper and sealed it in an evidence bag. She looked at Amara. You did the right thing keeping this safe. Sophia would be proud of you. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Is she alive? Hayes didn't lie to her. I don't know. But we're going to find out. Comment below. If you think Ochoa's going down. Don't just watch, be part of taking him down. Monday morning. Financial District. Manhattan. The building at the address Sophia had written was 42 stories of glass and steel with a lobby that smelled like money and marble. Marcus entered with Agent Hayes and 2 other FBI agents dressed in plain clothes. The directory listed Elias Ochoa's office on the 38th floor, **E, Ochoa Consulting. Investment Advisory Services. ***. Investment Advisory, Hayes muttered. That's a nice way to say money laundering. They took the elevator in silence. The 38th floor opened into a reception area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lower Manhattan. A receptionist, young, polished, wearing a headset, looked up from her desk. "Good morning. Do you have an appointment?" Hayes pulled out her badge. "FBI. We have a warrant to search these premises and interview Elias Ochoa." "Is he in?" The receptionist's smile froze. Let me check, don't." Hayes nodded to the other agents. "Secure the exits. Nobody leaves until we're done." The agents moved to block the doors. The receptionist stammered. "I need to call our attorney. You can call them after we execute the warrant." "Where's Ochoa's office?" The receptionist pointed down a hallway with a shaking hand. "Corner office." "But he's in a meeting." Hayes was already walking. Marcus followed, pulse steady despite the adrenaline. They'd come too far to stop now. Hayes opened the door without knocking. Inside, Elias Ochoa sat behind a desk made of dark wood and chrome, facing 3 men in suits. All 4 looked up, expressions shifting from surprise to calculation. "Gentlemen," Hayes said, holding up her badge. "Meeting's over. FBI. We have a warrant to search this office and seize all financial records related to Keystone Community Solutions, Horizon Initiative, and associated entities. Mr. 17. Ochoa, you're being detained for questioning." Ochoa didn't move. He looked at Marcus with the kind of recognition that comes from knowing someone's been studying you. "Mr. Caldwell. I wondered when you'd show up in person." "Consider it a courtesy visit," Marcus said. One of the suited men stood. "I'm Mr. Ochoa's attorney. You can't just barge in here." "We can and we did." Hayes handed him the warrant. "Everything in this office is subject to seizure. Your client can cooperate, or we can do this the hard way. His choice." Ochoa leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "I have nothing to hide. My businesses are legitimate. Keystone provides valuable services to underserved communities." "By exploiting children?" Marcus said. "We raided your facility in Ulster County. 11 girls under 16, malnourished and working without pay. That's not a service. That's slavery." Ochoa's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Those girls were in a rehabilitation program. We provided housing, structure, and job training. If some of my staff overstepped boundaries, that's regrettable. But I'm not responsible for every decision made by employees at a facility I don't directly manage." Hayes pulled out a folder. "Except you do manage it. We've traced wire transfers from your accounts to the property lease, payroll for supervisors, and supply orders. Your signature is on operational memos. You're not some distant investor, you're running the operation. Prove it in court." "We will." Hayes gestured to the agents outside. "Start seizing computers. Files. Phones. Everything gets inventoried and bagged." Ochoa finally stood. He was shorter than Marcus expected, maybe 5'8", but carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "You're making a mistake, Agent Hayes. My attorneys will have this warrant thrown out by end of day. And when they do, I'll sue you, the FBI, and Mr. Caldwell personally for harassment and defamation." Marcus stepped closer. "Sue me. I'll countersue for every dollar my foundation gave to your network. And when we're done in civil court, you'll be sitting in federal prison explaining to a jury why you thought it was acceptable to traffic children." Ochoa's expression hardened. "You self-righteous hypocrite. You funded this network for years and never asked questions. You wrote checks to feel important and didn't care where the money went. Now you want to play hero because your runaway daughter decided to pretend she's a savior? You're not better than me, Caldwell. You're just richer. The accusation landed like a fist. Because it was true. Marcus had funded this. He'd signed the checks. He'd posed for the photographs at charity galas, while girls like Mika were being sold into contracts they couldn't escape. But admitting guilt didn't erase responsibility. It created it. You're right, Marcus said quietly. I funded this. I didn't ask questions. I let my foundation become a pipeline for your operation because I was too busy building wealth to notice where it was going. That makes me complicit. But the difference between us? I'm willing to face consequences. Are you? Ochoa said nothing. Hayes handcuffed him. Elias Ochoa, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, child labor violations, and wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent. As she read him his rights, Marcus watched Ochoa's face for cracks. There were none. Just cold calculation, the look of a man already planning his next move. Marcus stepped into the hallway as agents continued searching Ochoa's office. His phone buzzed. Zara. It's done, Marcus said. Ochoa's in custody. I heard. It's all over the news. Billionaire philanthropist exposes trafficking network he accidentally funded. You're trending. Marcus heard the edge in her voice. You think I'm doing this for publicity? No. I think you're doing this because you finally realized money doesn't fix everything. Which is what I tried to tell you 9 years ago before I left. Marcus was quiet. She was right. Again. The girls from the upstate house are being processed, Zara continued. Most will go into legitimate foster programs or group homes. A few have family they can return to. But Marcus, there are still 32 girls unaccounted for. Sophia's one of them. And until we find her, this isn't over. I know. Ochoa's not going to talk. Men like him never do. They hire lawyers who know how to delay and deflect until evidence disappears or witnesses recant. We need leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind only you can provide. Ochoa's operation runs on money. If we can trace his offshore accounts and freeze them, before his lawyers intervene, he'll have nothing left to pay his legal team. He'll be forced to cooperate. Marcus thought about the financial records Bishop had been compiling for months. I'll talk to Bishop. If anyone can crack Ochoa's accounts, it's him. Do it fast. We've got maybe 48 hours before Ochoa's attorneys file motions to suppress evidence and tie this case up in court for years. Understood. Zara was quiet for a moment. Then, Marcus? Yes? Thank you. For showing up. For not trying to control this. For letting me lead. It was the closest thing to forgiveness she'd offered in 9 years. I'm still learning, Marcus said. So am I. The line went dead. Marcus stood in the hallway of a building that cost more per square foot than most people made in a year, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, purpose that didn't require a profit margin. He called Bishop. I need you to trace every offshore account. Connected to Elias Ochoa. Caymans. Switzerland, Singapore, everywhere. He might be hiding money. And I need it done in 48 hours. Bishop didn't hesitate. Consider it done. Bishop had been awake for 36 hours. His office, a converted loft in Williamsburg, looked like a conspiracy theorist's dream. Whiteboards covered in numbers. Laptops running code that traced financial transactions across 17 countries. Coffee cups stacked like a monument to exhaustion. Marcus arrived at 11 p.m. With takeout Bishop wouldn't eat and questions Bishop couldn't yet answer. Tell me you found something, Marcus said. Bishop didn't look up from his screen. I found 12 shell companies in the Caymans. 8 in Switzerland. 5 in Singapore. All connected to Ochoa through a web of holding companies designed to obscure ownership. Can you freeze them? Not directly. I'd need a federal judge to issue seizure orders, and that requires proving the money came from criminal activity. Which means we need to connect Ochoa's offshore accounts to specific victims or specific crimes. Marcus set down the food. We have testimony from Mika, Amara, and 16 other girls. We have payroll records showing wages were withheld. We have lease agreements for facilities where children were held. How is that not enough? Because Ochoa's lawyers will argue that he was a passive investor who didn't know what his contractors were doing. They'll claim he was defrauded by employees acting outside their authority. And unless we can prove Ochoa personally directed the trafficking, not just funded it, his money stays protected. Marcus felt frustration rising. So he walks? I didn't say that. Bishop pulled up a new screen. I've been tracing wire transfers from Ochoa's accounts to a company called Apex Management Services. Apex paid the supervisors at the upstate house. But here's the wire, interesting part. Apex also paid for travel expenses. Flights, hotels, rental cars. And some of those expenses coincide with the dates girls were transferred between facilities. Marcus leaned closer. You're saying Ochoa personally transported them? Or oversaw the transports? Either way, it establishes direct involvement. If we can prove he was on site when girls were moved, his passive investor defense collapses. How do we prove it? Bishop grinned the first time Marcus had seen him smile in weeks. Credit card receipts. Ochoa's not stupid, but he's arrogant. He used a corporate card for the travel expenses. And corporate cards leave digital footprints. Marcus's pulse quickened. Where did he go? Bishop pulled up a map with red pins marking locations. Newark, Boston, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Charlotte. All cities where Keystone operated facilities. And all within 72 hours of girls being transferred from those facilities to the upstate house. That's not coincidence. No. It's a pattern. And patterns are evidence. Bishop printed out a spreadsheet. I'm sending this to Agent Hayes. If she can subpoena hotel security footage or rental car GPS data, we can place Ochoa at these locations when the transfers happened. That's conspiracy to commit trafficking. Federal crime. 20 years minimum. Marcus took the printout. How long before his lawyers figure out we have this? They probably already know we're looking. But they don't know what we've found. Yet. Bishop finally looked at Marcus. You need to move fast. Once Ochoa's legal team files their motions, this evidence could get suppressed if they claim it was obtained improperly. We need a judge to authorize seizure of his accounts before that happens. I'll call Judge Winters. Do it now. Because if Ochoa moves his money before we freeze it, he'll disappear. Men like him always have exit plans. 2 floors below the FBI field office, Elias Ochoa sat in an interrogation room that smelled like stale coffee and industrial cleaning solution. He'd been processed, fingerprinted, and photographed. His attorney, a man named Samuels who charged $800 an hour, sat beside him, reviewing documents with the bored efficiency of someone who did this twice a week. They're going to offer you a deal, Samuel said. Testify against your contractors, provide information about offshore accounts, and they'll recommend reduced sentencing. Ochoa smiled. I'm not testifying against anyone. Elias, they have you on wire fraud and conspiracy. If you don't cooperate, they have circumstantial evidence. Wire transfers don't prove intent. Employment contracts don't prove exploitation. And testimony from girls who were placed through legitimate social services programs won't hold up in court. Any competent attorney can argue I was providing opportunities to disadvantaged youth and that my employees mismanaged those opportunities. Samuel set down his pen. That's a gamble. It's a calculated risk. And I've made a career out of calculated risks. Ochoa leaned back. They need me to talk. Which means they're missing something. And as long as I stay quiet, they can't fill that gap. A knock at the door. Agent Hayes entered with a folder. Mr. Samuels. Mr. Ochoa. I have an update on your client's case. Samuels looked up. Unless you're here to release him, we're done talking without formal charges. Oh, we're filing formal charges. Hayes opened the folder and slid a document across the table. Conspiracy to commit human trafficking. Child labor violations. Wire fraud. Money laundering. And here's the new one: interstate transportation of minors for purposes of forced labor. Ochoa's expression didn't change. But something flickered in his eyes. Hayes continued. We've traced your travel expenses over the last 3 years. You were personally present at 6 facilities when girls were transferred. That's not passive investment. That's active participation. And that's a federal crime with a mandatory minimum of 20 years. Samuels scanned the document. His face paled. These allegations are circumstantial. We have credit card receipts, hotel security footage, rental car GPS data, and witness testimony from a girl named Amara who remembers seeing you at the upstate facility last summer. Hayes looked at Ochoa. You told her she should be grateful for the opportunity you'd given her. She remembers because you were the first person to visit the house who wore a suit. Ochoa's jaw tightened. Hayes leaned forward. Here's the deal. You cooperate, provide information about every facility, every contractor, every girl who passed through your network, and we recommend 15 years instead of .rd. Life. You stay silent, and you'd in federal prison. Your choice. Samuels whispered urgently to Ochoa. Ochoa brushed him off. I want immunity, Ochoa said. Hayes laughed. You traffic children. You're not getting immunity. Then we have nothing to discuss. Hayes stood. Fine. Enjoy your cell. And when your assets get frozen tomorrow morning, enjoy explaining to your lawyers why you can't pay them anymore. She left the folder on the table and walked out. Samuels looked at Ochoa. Elias, if they freeze your accounts. They won't. I have contingencies. But Ochoa's voice lacked its usual confidence. Because for the first time in his career, he'd miscalculated. He'd underestimated Marcus Caldwell. And he'd underestimated Caldwell's willingness to burn his own reputation to expose the network Ochoa had built. Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. Judge Marianne Winters signed the asset seizure order in her chambers before the sun fully rose. Marcus watched her pen move across the document, deliberate, precise, final. This freezes every account we've traced to Ochoa, she said, handing the order to Agent Hayes. Domestic and offshore. Caymans, Switzerland, Singapore. He won't be able to access $1 without federal approval. Hayes took the document. How long before his attorneys challenge it? They'll file motions by noon. But I've structured the order to withstand immediate appeals. As long as your evidence holds, this freeze stays in place through trial. Marcus nodded. Thank you, Marianne. She looked at him over her glasses. Don't thank me. Thank your forensic accountant. Without Bishop's work tracing those transactions, I couldn't have justified this. Now go make sure it sticks. The asset freeze hit Ochoa's accounts at exactly 8:03 a.m. Bishop monitored the process from his laptop, watching balances drop to zero across 12 different banks. Caymans frozen. Switzerland frozen. Singapore frozen. He's got nothing liquid left except maybe some cash hidden under a mattress. Agent Hayes stood beside him. What's the total we froze? 47 million across all accounts. Most of it traced directly to Keystone operations or shell companies Ochoa controlled. Marcus calculated quickly. That's not enough. Ochoa's estimated net worth is over 200 million. Where's the rest? Bishop pulled up another screen. Real estate. He owns properties in 6 states: residential, commercial, and the upstate facility. We've filed liens on all of them, but those take longer to liquidate. And he's got investment portfolios we're still tracing. How long before he realizes he's frozen? His attorneys probably got the notification 30 seconds after the order executed. Bishop checked his phone. And yep, there it is. Samuels just called the U.S. Attorney's office, screaming about unlawful seizure. Hayes smiled grimly. Let him scream. We've got the evidence and the warrant. Now we wait for Ochoa to crack. *** holding cell, 9:15 a.m. *** Elias Ochoa sat in the interrogation room, tie loosened, expensive watch confiscated during processing. His attorney Samuels paced like a caged animal. They froze everything. Samuels said. Every account. Offshore included. I can't even bill you for my time because your operating account is locked. Ochoa's jaw tightened. File an emergency motion. I already did. It'll be heard this afternoon, but Elias, they have documentation linking those accounts to criminal activity. The judge isn't going to unfreeze them based on a procedural complaint. Then find another angle. There is no other angle. Samuels slammed his briefcase shut. You're facing federal trafficking charges with evidence that puts you at crime scenes during victim transports. Your only play is cooperation. Tell them where the missing girls are, provide documentation on your contractors, and maybe we can negotiate down to 15 years. No. Then I'm withdrawing as your attorney. I'm not going to stand beside you in court while you throw your life away out of pride. Ochoa looked at him coldly. You're withdrawing because I can't pay you. Samuels didn't deny it. I have a practice to run. I can't work pro bono on a case this complex. Find another attorney. One who'll take payment plans. He left. Ochoa sat alone in the interrogation room, walls closing in. For the first time in his career, he'd lost control of the variables. Marcus Caldwell had done what no prosecutor had managed: strip away the financial cushion that kept men like Ochoa insulated from consequences. A knock at the door. Agent Hayes entered with a folder. Your attorney quit, Hayes said, sitting across from him. Can't say I blame him. Representing you is career suicide at this point. Ochoa said nothing. Hayes opened the folder. We found something interesting this morning. A property deed in your name. Small cabin in the Adirondacks, about 90 miles north of the upstate house. Purchased under an LLC, but the paperwork traces back to you. Ochoa's expression remained neutral, but his hands tightened on the table. We're executing a search warrant there in 2 hours, Hayes continued. Want to tell me what we're going to find? Or do you want to wait and see if it adds more charges? Ochoa stared at the table. Then, quietly, I want a deal. I told you no immunity. Not immunity. Reduced sentencing. I give you everything: locations, names, records, and you recommend 15 years. I serve it in a federal facility with protective custody. Hayes studied him. Why the sudden change of heart? Because I'm not stupid. You've frozen my assets. My attorney quit. And if you find what I think you're going to find at that cabin, I'm looking at life without parole. 15 years is better than dying in prison. Hayes leaned back. What's at the cabin? Ochoa took a breath. Records. The real ones. Every girl who passed through the network, where they came from, where they went. Including the 32 you haven't found yet. Hayes's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. Including Sophia? Yes. Is she alive? Ochoa hesitated. Some of them are. The words landed like stones in water. Hayes stood. I'll talk to the U.S. attorney. But Elias, if you're lying, if this is a stall tactic, the deal evaporates. Understood? Understood. Marcus was in his hotel suite when Hayes called. "Ochoa's talking," she said without preamble. "He's offering full cooperation in exchange for reduced sentencing. Says there's a cabin in the Adirondacks with records documenting every girl in the network." Marcus closed his eyes. "Did he say if Sophia's alive?" "He said some of them are. That's all he'd confirm." "When do we move on the cabin?" "Warrants being drafted now. We'll execute in 2 hours." "But Marcus, I need to prepare you for what we might find. If Ochoa's been running this operation for years, there's a possibility some of these girls didn't survive. Or were moved into situations we can't easily extract them from." Marcus understood what she wasn't saying. Some girls might have been sold into other networks. Others might be dead. "I want to be there when you search the cabin," Marcus said. "Marcus, I know. Observer only. But I need to see this through." Hayes sighed. "Fine. But you stay in the vehicle. And if this turns into a crime scene, you leave immediately." "Agreed." Marcus hung up and stared out the window at the Manhattan skyline. 9 years ago, he'd stood in the Mametid one, rain at his daughter's fake funeral and promised himself he'd find her. He'd found her. And in finding her, he'd uncovered a network that swallowed hundreds of girls. Now they were 90 miles from answers. He called Zara. "Ochoa's cooperating. He's giving up locations of the missing girls." Zara's voice was tight. "All of them?" "He says he has records. We're raiding a cabin in 2 hours. I'm coming with you." "Zara, don't argue. If Sophia's name is in those records, I need to see it. I need to know where she is." Marcus knew better than to fight her when her voice had that edge. "Meet me at the FBI field office in an hour." "I'll be there." The cabin was a 2-hour drive from Manhattan, buried in the Adirondacks where cell service died and roads turned to gravel. Marcus sat in the FBI van beside Zara, both silent as they watched the tactical team approach the structure. It was smaller than the upstate house, just a single-story building with a metal roof and boarded windows. No sign of life. Agent Hayes spoke into her radio, "All teams in position. Warrant is active. Breach on my count." The door came down with a single ram strike. Agents poured inside, flashlights cutting through darkness. "Clear. Clear. Basement access located. Checking now." Marcus held his breath. Beside him, Zara's hands clenched into fists. The radio crackled, **** basement is. Jesus. You need to see this. ****. Hayes frowned. "What'd you find? ****. It's not girls. It's files. Thousands of them. Looks like Ochoa's been running this operation for over a decade." Hayes looked at Marcus and Zara. "Stay here." "I mean it." She exited the van and entered the cabin. Marcus and Zara waited in suffocating silence. 5 minutes felt like hours. When Hayes returned, her face was grim. "It's an archive. Filing cabinets, hard drives, ledgers. Every girl who passed through Keystone's network since 2011. Names, ages, placement locations, transfer dates. Some files have photographs." Zara's voice shook. "Is Sophia in there?" Hayes pulled out a tablet. "We're digitizing the records now. But yes, we found her file." Zara stood. "Where is she?" Hayes hesitated. "According to the records, Sophia was transferred from the upstate house to a private placement 8 months ago. Location listed as Atlantic City. No further details." "Atlantic City," Marcus repeated. "Doing what?" Hayes's expression answered before her words did. "The file says hospitality services." Which in Ochoa's network could mean anything from legitimate hotel work to exploitation, Zara finished. Her voice was flat. "He sold her. We don't know that for certain. The records are vague intentionally. But we've contacted Atlantic City PD and the FBI field office there. They're running checks on hotels and businesses connected to Keystone's network. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll make calls. I know people in Atlantic City, casino owners, hotel executives. If Sophia's working at any major property, they'll know. Do it, Hayes said. But be discreet. If Ochoa's contacts realize we're looking, they might move her before we can get there. Zara turned to Hayes. How many other girls are listed in those files? Hayes checked her tablet. Preliminary count shows 347 girls processed through Keystone between 2011 and now. We've accounted for 112, either in custody, relocated to safe housing, or returned to families. That leaves 235 unaccounted for. The number hit like a physical blow. 235, Zara whispered. How do we find them all? We cross-referenced the files with current employment records, social services databases, and missing persons reports. It'll take weeks, maybe months. But we'll find them. Hayes looked at Zara. Starting with Sophia. Marcus stepped away from the van and made 5 calls in rapid succession. First, a casino executive who owed Marcus a favor after Caldwell Technologies provided security AI for his properties. I need to know if a girl named Sophia, late teens, early 20s, is working at any hotel or casino in Atlantic City. She might be listed under hospitality services or housekeeping. The executive hesitated. That's a lot of properties, Marcus. And employment records are confidential. I'm not asking for records. I'm asking you to make calls. Discreetly. Someone in your network knows something. And if this girl is where I think she is, you don't want your name anywhere near it when the FBI moves in. A pause. I'll make calls. Second call, a real estate developer who'd partnered with Marcus on property investments years. I need a list of every hotel in Atlantic City with ownership ties to shell companies registered in the Caymans or Delaware. Specifically ones that hire through staffing agencies. Why? Because I'm dismantling a trafficking network, and I think they're operating in your city. You want to be helpful or obstructive? I'll send you the list. Third call, a journalist Marcus had quietly funded during an investigative series on labor violations in the hospitality industry. Remember that series you wrote about contract workers in Atlantic City? I need your source list. Every hotel, every staffing agency, every contractor who hires girls through nonprofit placements. The journalist didn't ask questions. I'll email it within the hour. By the time Marcus finished the 5th call, he had 3 potential locations, 2 hotels and a private club that hired housekeeping staff through a temp agency connected to Keystone. He returned to the van. I've got leads. 3 properties in Atlantic City with connections to Keystone's staffing network. Hayes pulled up a map. Which ones? The Oceanic Hotel, Grandview Suites, and a private club called the Neptune. Hayes typed rapidly. The Neptune's been flagged before. Anonymous tips about underage workers. Local PD investigated but found nothing. Could be Ochoa's people tipped them off before the raid. Then we don't tip them off this time, Marcus said. We go in fast. Zara looked at him. When? Tonight. Subscribe now, we're about to find Sophia. Don't miss what happens next. Atlantic City, New Jersey, 11:47 p.m. The Neptune Club sat 3 blocks from the boardwalk, expensive enough to avoid police scrutiny, discreet enough to hide what happened behind closed doors. Valets in white jackets. Security in black suits. A sign out front that read, ***, members only. ***, Marcus sat in an unmarked van with Agent Hayes and Zara, watching the entrance through tinted windows. Local FBI agents had already positioned themselves at the exits. Building has 3 floors, Hayes said, reviewing blueprints on her tablet. Ground floor is the main club bar, lounge, private dining rooms. Second floor is guest suites. Third floor is staff quarters and offices. Where would they keep girls? Zara asked. If they're hiding workers, probably third floor. Closed to management, away from customers. Marcus checked his watch. Warrant ready. Signed 30 minutes ago. Atlantic City PD is coordinating with us. On my signal, they'll block the street and we breach all entrances simultaneously. Zara stared at the building. What if she's not there? What if Ochoa lied? Then we check the other two properties, Marcus said. But Ochoa's cooperating because he wants a deal. Lying now would kill any chance of reduced sentencing. Hayes's radio crackled, ***, all teams. In position. Waiting on green light. ***, Hayes looked at Marcus and Zara. Last chance to stay in the van. Neither moved. Hayes pressed transmit. Execute. The breach was surgical. Front and rear doors hit simultaneously. Agents poured through, voices shouting commands, guests frozen mid-conversation, security reaching for weapons they never drew. FBI. Nobody move. Hands where we can see them. This is a federal warrant, stay seated. Marcus followed Hayes inside. Zara, right behind him. The club's interior was all marble and dark wood, expensive furniture, expensive art, expensive people who suddenly looked very worried. A man in a suit, manager, maybe, stepped forward. What is this about? Hayes showed her badge. We have a warrant to search these premises for evidence of labor trafficking and employment violations. Where's your staff? I third floor. But they're off duty. Not anymore. Hayes nodded to her. Team. Secure the third floor. Check every room. Nobody leaves. Marcus and Zara followed agents up the stairs. The third floor hallway was narrow, lined with doors that looked like hotel rooms but had electronic locks on the outside. Locked from the outside. Hayes stopped at the first door and swiped a master key they'd confiscated from the manager. The door opened. Inside, a small room with 2 beds, a shared bathroom, and clothes folded neatly on a dresser. 2 girls, maybe 19 and 21, sat on the beds, eyes wide with fear. It's okay, Hayes said gently. You're not in trouble. We're FBI. We're here to help. One girl spoke in accented English. We have papers. We're legal. I'm sure you do. We're not immigration. We're investigating your employer. What are your names? The girls exchanged glances. Then the younger one said, I'm Catalina. This is Mariella. We work housekeeping. How long have you worked here? 6 months. We came through a job placement program. Hayes pulled out her tablet. Was the program run by Keystone Community Solutions? Both girls nodded. Are you paid directly or through a contractor? Contractor. They take out rent and uniforms and food. We get what's left. How much is left? Catalina's voice dropped. Maybe 200 a week. Sometimes less. Marcus felt rage building. 200 a week for full-time work was below minimum wage, barely enough to survive, certainly not enough to leave. Hayes made notes. Is there a girl named Sophia here? Early 20s. From New York? Mariella's expression shifted, recognition, then fear. She's downstairs. Private service. Zara stepped forward. What does that mean? Mariella looked at the floor. Some guests pay extra. For company. Sophia does that sometimes. The room went silent. Marcus's voice was ice. She's forced to. I don't know if forced. But if we say no, they dock our pay. Or threaten to send us back to the group homes. So we say yes. Hayes spoke into her radio. I need a team to check private suites on the 2nd floor immediately. We're looking for a girl named Sophia, early 20s, dark hair. Consider her a victim in active danger. ***, copy. Moving now. Asterisk asterisk Zara grabbed Marcus's arm. We need to go down there. Agents are all ready, I don't care. If she's down there with some, Zara's voice broke. I'm not leaving her with them one more second. Marcus looked at Hayes. Hayes nodded. Go. But let my team clear the rooms first. They ran. The second floor was quieter, carpeted hallways, numbered doors, the kind of privacy money bought. An agent stood outside Suite 207, radio in hand. Suites occupied. Male guest, one female. Guest is refusing to open the door, claiming we don't have jurisdiction over private club members. Hayes arrived, pulling out the warrant. We have jurisdiction over criminal activity. Open the door, or we will. The door cracked open. A man in his 50s, expensive suit, gold watch, entitled expression stepped into the doorway. Do you know who I am? I don't care. Step aside. I'm a member of this club. I have rights. Hayes pushed past him into the suite. Inside, sitting on a couch with her arms wrapped around herself, was a young woman with dark hair and hollow eyes. She wore a cocktail dress that didn't fit right and makeup that couldn't hide the exhaustion. Zara stepped into the room. Sophia. The girl looked up. Recognition flickered, then tears. Zara? Sophia's voice cracked. How did you? Zara crossed the room and pulled Sophia into a hug. I've been looking for you for 8 months. I'm so sorry it took this long. Sophia sobbed against her shoulder. They said no one was coming. They said I was forgotten. Never, Zara whispered. Never forgotten. Marcus watched from the doorway as Hayes arrested the man who was still protesting about his rights and his lawyer, while Zara held Sophia and promised her it was over. But Marcus knew better. It wasn't over. Not until every girl in those files was found. Not until every person who'd bought, sold, or exploited them faced justice. This was one girl. One rescue. One small victory in a war that had been raging in the shadows for over a decade. But it was a start. Sophia sat in the back of the FBI van, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like government issue and safety. Zara held her hand while a paramedic checked her vitals. Blood pressures elevated but stable. No immediate medical concerns. She should see a trauma counselor within 24 hours. The paramedic handed Sophia a bottle of water. Small sips. You're dehydrated. Sophia took the water but didn't drink. She stared at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Marcus stood outside the van, watching through the open door. Agent Hayes joined him, tablet in hand. We found 6 more girls inside the Neptune, Hayes said. All hired through Keystone's placement network. Ages, 18 to 23. Same story as Sophia, promised legitimate work, ended up in exploitative situations they couldn't escape. What happens to them now? Victim advocates are processing them. We'll get statements, medical evaluations, and figure out housing. Some have family they can return to. Others will need temporary placement while we build the case. Marcus looked at Sophia. And her? She'll need to testify. Her story connects Keystone directly to the Neptune and to Ochoa's operation. But that's weeks away. Right now, she needs rest and safety. Zara climbed out of the van. Her eyes were red but her voice was steady. Sophia wants to go to the safe house. With Mika. She doesn't want to be alone. Hayes nodded. I'll arrange transport. Teresa's already been notified. She's expecting her. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll cover the costs. Medical care, counseling, whatever she needs. Zara looked at him. She needs justice. Not charity. She'll get both. By morning, the story had exploded across every news outlet. Asterisk asterisk Billionaire exposes trafficking network he unknowingly funded. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Marcus Caldwell's foundation linked to labor exploitation ring. Asterisk 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 FBI raids rescue dozens of girls from illegal work program asterisk asterisk Marcus sat in his hotel suite, watching the coverage on mute. His phone buzzed nonstop, board members demanding meetings, investors pulling out of partnerships, reporters requesting interviews he wouldn't give. His assistant called. Marcus, the board is threatening to remove you from the foundation entirely. They're saying your involvement in this scandal is destroying the organization's credibility. Let them remove me. I'll build something better. Marcus, I'm not defending myself. I funded exploitation. Unintentionally, but I funded it. If the board wants me gone, I'll go. But I'm not stopping until every girl in those files is found. He hung up. Zara knocked on his door 10 minutes later. She looked exhausted but determined. I saw the news, she said, stepping inside. Your reputation is getting shredded. Good. I deserve it. You're not the villain here. I'm not the hero either. I'm the person who signed checks without asking questions. That makes me complicit. Marcus gestured to the television. Let them destroy my reputation. If it means 200 more girls get rescued, it's worth it. Zara sat on the couch. Bishop called me. He finished analyzing the files from the cabin. There are addresses for 193 girls. The other 42 were listed as transferred out of state or out of country with no forwarding information. Marcus felt the weight of that number. 42 girls who might be beyond reach. We focus on the 193 we can find, Marcus said. Starting today. Zara pulled out a map covered in pins, red for confirmed locations, yellow for probable, blue for unknown. Bishop cross-referenced the addresses with employment databases. 87 girls are currently working at hotels or service businesses in 12 states. 43 are listed as living in group homes or transitional housing. The rest are harder to trace. Marcus studied the map. We need coordinated raids. Hit every location simultaneously so Ochoa's network can't warn anyone. Hayes is already coordinating with FBI field offices nationwide. She's calling it Operation Invisible because these girls have been invisible for too long. When do they move? 72 hours. They need time to prepare warrants and position teams. But Marcus, this is going to be massive. 23 locations across 12 states. If even one raid goes wrong, if someone gets hurt, then we make sure they don't go wrong. We provide resources, security analysis, logistics support. Whatever the FBI needs. Zara nodded slowly. You're really doing this. Burning your entire empire to save people you'll never meet. I built the empire on predictions and profits. It's time I built something on purpose. Elias Ochoa sat across from federal prosecutors in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and legal documents. His new attorney, a public defender named Morris who looked fresh out of law school, sat beside him, reviewing the plea agreement. The lead prosecutor, a woman named Diane Chin, slid the final document across the table. 15 years in federal prison. Protective custody. Full cooperation, which means you testify against every contractor, every business partner, every politician who took donations, knowing where the money came from. You provide documentation for all financial transactions and victim placements. You allocate assets to a victim restitution fund. Sign here. Ochoa picked up the pen. His hand didn't shake. And the girls? What happens to them? Chen's expression hardened. You don't get to ask about them. You lost that right when you exploited them. I'm asking because I want to know if this deal is actually helping them or just making you look good. It's doing both. Every girl we find gets access to medical care, counseling, housing, and legal support. Your restitution fund will pay for it. You'll spend 15 years in prison knowing you helped clean up the mess you made. That's the best deal you're going to get. Ochoa signed. Chen collected the document. We'll schedule your testimony for next month. Until then, you stay in federal custody. If you withhold information or lie under oath, this deal evaporates, and you face life without parole. Clear? Clear. Morris gathered his papers. As they stood to leave, Ochoa looked at Chen. For what it's worth, I didn't start this operation to hurt anyone. I genuinely thought I was providing opportunities. Chen's voice was ice. You thought wrong. And 200 girls paid the price for your mistake. She walked out. Ochoa was escorted back to his cell, where he'd spend the next 15 years thinking about the empire he'd built, and the lives he'd destroyed in the process. Friday morning. 5 a.m. Eastern Time. Across 12 states, FBI teams prepared to execute the largest coordinated human trafficking raid in U.S. history. Marcus watched the operation unfold from the FBI command center in Manhattan, a room filled with monitors showing live feeds from raid locations. Agent Hayes stood at the front, coordinating with field offices via secure channels. All teams. Report status. Hayes said into her headset. One by one, voices responded. Boston team ready. Philadelphia ready. Atlanta ready. Dallas ready. 23 locations. 87 girls. Simultaneous breach in 3 minutes. Zara stood beside Marcus, arms crossed, watching the screens. This is it. After today, Keystone's network is gone. If everything goes according to plan, Marcus said. It will. Hayes doesn't fail. Hayes raised her hand. All teams, execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Go. The screens erupted with movement. Agents breached the service entrance while local police blocked the front. Inside, 6 girls were found in a basement laundry facility, working 12-hour shifts sorting linens. The manager tried to run. He was tackled in the parking lot. Boston reporting, 6 victims secured. 1 suspect in custody. The raid hit during shift change. Found in a staff dormitory above the hotel, living 4 to a room with locks on the outside doors. Philadelphia reporting, 9 victims secured. 2 suspects detained. Agents found 12 girls, the youngest 16, working kitchen and housekeeping. Most had been told they owed thousands in training fees, and couldn't leave until debts were paid. Atlanta reporting, 12 victims secured. Hotel manager cooperating. The Dallas raid encountered resistance. Security guards attempted to block agents at the door. Within minutes, backup arrived and the building was secured. 14 girls were found, including 2 who'd been reported missing by families over a year ago. Dallas reporting, 14 victims secured. 3 suspects in custody. 2 girls match active missing persons reports. Hayes marked locations on her map as reports came in. Green pins for successful raids. No red pins yet. Marcus calculated in real time. That's 41 so far. 46 more to go. Zara's phone buzzed. Text from Teresa, Mika and Sophia watching the news. They're crying. Happy tears. Zara showed Marcus the message. He nodded but said nothing. There would be time for relief later. Right now, they still had work to do. The Chicago raid hit complications. Chicago team reporting, address is abandoned. Building's been empty for 6 months. No victims on site. Hayes frowned. Bishop, pull up the records for Chicago. Bishop typed rapidly on his laptop. File says 5 girls placed at the Lakeview residences in March. But property records show the building sold in April. New owners renovated it into condos. Where did the girls go? Transferred to another location. Address listed as. Hold on. Bishop's face paled. There's no address. Just a note, relocated per client request. Marcus felt cold settle in his chest. Client request. Them. Hayes spoke into her radio, all teams. If you encounter client request notations in any files, flag them immediately. We may have girls who were sold outside the network. Zara's hands clenched. How many files have that notation? Bishop checked. 11. Spread across 4 states. 11 girls we can't trace, Zara said. 11 more Sophias still out there. We'll find them, Marcus said. But first, we finish this operation. Over the next 3 hours, the remaining raids executed without major incidents. By 9 a.m., Hayes received the final reports. Asterisk asterisk. 87 girls rescued. Asterisk 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 32 suspects arrested. Asterisk 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 asterisk. 11 girls unaccounted for flagged as client transfers. Asterisk asterisk Hayes addressed the command center. Operation Invisible is complete. Victim advocates are processing rescues. Prosecutors are filing charges. And as of this morning, Keystone Community Solutions no longer exists as a functioning organization. Applause erupted. Marcus didn't join in. He stared at the 11 yellow pins on the map, girls still missing. Zara touched his arm. We saved 87 lives today. That matters. It does. But 11 girls are still out there. And until we find them, this isn't finished. Then we keep looking. Marcus nodded. We keep looking. Asterisk asterisk end chapter 17. Operation Invisible succeeds. 87 girls rescued, Keystone dismantled. But 11 girls sold to private buyers remain missing. The fight continues. Asterisk asterisk. 2 weeks later, Marcus Caldwell sat in a federal courtroom and watched justice move at its slow, deliberate pace. Elias Ochoa took the stand and testified for 6 hours. He named contractors. He identified properties. He walked prosecutors through financial records that traced money from charitable donations to offshore accounts to labor trafficking operations. The defense attorneys tried to break him. They failed. When Ochoa finished, the lead prosecutor asked one final question, Mr. Ochoa, do you regret what you did? Ochoa looked at the jury. I regret getting caught. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Marcus watched Ochoa's face and saw no remorse, just calculation, even now, weighing angles and outcomes. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Marcus pushed through without comment. Zara waited by a car at the curb. How'd it go? She asked. He testified. Gave them everything they needed. But he doesn't care about the girls. He cares about his sentence. At least he's going to prison. For 15 years. Then he's free. And the girls he exploited carry that trauma forever. Zara opened the car door. That's why we're building something better. So the next generation doesn't end up in his system. The non-profit Zara founded, the Invisible Architects, operated out of a converted warehouse in Brooklyn with a staff of 12 and a mission statement that fit on a single page, asterisk asterisk. Make exploitation visible. Make survivors powerful. Asterisk asterisk. Marcus funded it. Zara ran it. And slowly, deliberately, they built something that didn't exist before, a network to counter the network that had swallowed so many. The program trained survivors as advocates, provided legal support for girls escaping exploitative contracts, partnered with law enforcement to identify trafficking operations before they expanded, and most importantly, gave survivors the tools to rebuild their lives on their own terms. Mika became the organization's youngest advocate. At 13, she spoke at conferences about her experience and helped design a curriculum for schools to teach students how to recognize trafficking red flags. Sophia led the legal team. She'd passed her paralegal certification and was working toward a law degree with one goal: prosecute the people who'd exploited her and others like her. And Marcus? He stepped down from Caldwell Technologies entirely. The board had forced him out, investors had fled, and his net worth had dropped by 40%. He didn't care. He redirected his remaining wealth into 3 areas: funding survivor programs, lobbying for stronger labor trafficking laws, and financing investigative journalists who exposed exploitation networks before they could grow. His reputation never recovered. Business magazines called him reckless. Competitors called him naive. Former partners avoided him at events. But the survivors called him an ally. And that mattered more than any headline ever could. On a cold evening in December, Marcus and Zara stood on the rooftop of the Invisible Architects headquarters, watching the Brooklyn skyline breathe with light. "We found 2 more girls this week," Zara said. "From the client transfer list. They were working at a private estate in Connecticut. FBI raided it yesterday." "That makes 9 out of 11, Marcus said, 2 still missing. We'll find them. It might take years, but we'll find them." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Then, I owe you an apology. For the 9 years you spent doing this alone. For not listening when you tried to tell me the world didn't work the way I thought it did." Zara looked at him. "You're listening now." "I'm trying. That's all I ever wanted. For you to see that money doesn't fix everything. Sometimes it makes things worse. But when used right, it can dismantle the systems that hurt people." Marcus nodded. "I spent my career predicting human behavior. But I never predicted that my own daughter would teach me what behavior matters." Zara smiled, small, genuine, the first real smile Marcus had seen from her in years. "You're learning. Slowly. But you're learning. Think I'll ever get it right? Probably not. But you're trying. And that's more than most billionaires ever do." They stood in silence, 2 people who'd been broken by the same system and were now rebuilding something better from the wreckage. Below them, the city moved. Somewhere in its depths, 2 girls were still missing. Somewhere else, a survivor was testifying in court. Somewhere else, a new exploitation network was forming. The fight wasn't over. It would never be over. But tonight, standing on a rooftop in Brooklyn with his daughter beside him, Marcus Caldwell understood something he'd spent a lifetime missing. Wealth builds empires. But purpose builds legacies. And the only legacy worth leaving was one that made the world safer for people who'd never know your name. 18 months after Operation Invisible. 2 names remained on the board in the Invisible Architects war room. *** Jasmine Chen. Age 17. Last known location, unknown. *** Destiny Morris. Age 16. Last known location, unknown. ***. Both had been flagged as client transfers in Ochoa's records. Both had disappeared into private placements with no forwarding addresses. Both had families who'd stopped hoping years ago. Marcus stood in front of the board at 7 in the morning, coffee untouched, studying the sparse information they had. Bishop entered with his laptop. "I've been running pattern analysis on the client transfer files. Every transaction has a reference code alphanumeric string that looked random at first. But I found a pattern." He pulled up a spreadsheet. The codes correspond to wire transfer recipients. Most payments went to staffing agencies or contractors. But 11 payments, the ones for girls who disappeared, went to individual accounts. "Private buyers," Marcus said. "Exactly. And I traced 2 of those accounts. One belongs to a real estate developer in Miami. The other to a hedge fund manager in Connecticut. Both have histories of employing domestic workers through private arrangements." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "Domestic workers? You mean house staff they don't report to authorities?" "Correct. No employment records. No tax documents. Just cash payments and girls who disappear into estates where no one asks questions. We raided the Connecticut estate 6 months ago, Marcus said. Found 2 girls there. Different buyer. This hedge fund manager, his name is Richard Voss. He purchased properties in 3 states. Connecticut was one. The others are in upstate New York and New Hampshire. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling Hayes. If Voss bought multiple properties, he might be moving girls between them to avoid detection. Already ahead of you. I sent her the information an hour ago. She's coordinating with field offices to execute search warrants on all 3 properties simultaneously. When? Tomorrow morning. She wants you and Zara there as observers. Marcus nodded. Tell her we'll be ready. While Marcus worked the investigation angle, Zara worked the human one. She sat across from Jasmine Chen's mother in a small apartment in Queens. Mrs. Chen held a photograph of her daughter's school picture from 3 years ago, smile that looked forced even then. The police said she ran away. Mrs. Chen said, voice hollow. They said teenagers do that. They said she'd come home when she was ready. She didn't run away, Zara said gently. She was taken by people who exploited her. And we're going to bring her home. Mrs. Chen's hands trembled. You found other girls. I saw the news. But it's been 3 years. What if she's, don't go there. We have a lead. A good one. And tomorrow we're executing search warrants on properties where we think she might be. What if she doesn't want to come back? What if she's ashamed or afraid? Or Zara reached across the table and took Mrs. Chen's hand. When we find her, I'll be there. I'll tell her what I wish someone had told me when I was hiding, that coming home isn't about pride or shame. It's about safety. And that her mother never stopped looking. Mrs. Chen broke down crying. Zara stayed with her until the tears subsided, then left her with a phone number and a promise, when we find her, you'll be the first call I make. Agent Hayes called Marcus at 9 that night. Warrants are signed. We move at 6 a.m. 3 properties upstate New York near Lake George, New Hampshire outside Manchester, and a secondary Connecticut location near Bridgeport. Which one should we focus on? New York. Voss purchased it 8 months ago under an LLC. Property records show it's listed as a private residence, but utility bills suggest multiple occupants. Could be staff. Could be girls. We'll meet you there. Hayes paused. Marcus, I need to be clear about something. These aren't trafficking facilities. These are private estates owned by wealthy individuals who've hired workers through illegal channels. If we find girls there, they might not see themselves as victims. They might defend their employers. It's complicated. I understand. Do you? Because if Jasmine or Destiny is at one of these properties and they refuse to leave, we can't force them. They're not minors anymore. Legally, they have the right to stay. Marcus felt the weight of that reality. Then we give them the choice. But we make sure they know it's a real choice, not one made under coercion or fear. Agreed. See you tomorrow. Lake George, New York. 6:14 a.m. The Voss estate sat on 40 acres of private land, surrounded by woods and a security fence that screamed money and secrecy. The main house was 3 stories, all glass and modern architecture, with a separate guest house and staff quarters. Marcus and Zara watched from the FBI van as agents approached the gate. Agent Hayes spoke into her radio, "Security system is active. Cutting power now." The lights around the property went dark. Agents breached the gate and moved toward the main house in coordinated formation. FBI. We have a warrant to search these premises. The front door opened before they could breach it. Richard Voss stood in the doorway, 50s, silver hair, wearing a bathrobe that probably cost more than most people's cars. "This is private property," Voss said calmly. "I'm calling my attorney." "Call them from inside. We're executing a search warrant for evidence of labor trafficking and employment violations. Hayes handed him the document. How many people are on the property? Myself, my wife, and 3 household staff members. All legally employed. We'll verify that. Where are the staff members now? Voss gestured toward the back of the house. Staff quarters. But I assure you, they're here voluntarily. They're paid well and treated fairly. Hayes nodded to her team. Check. The staff quarters. Document everything. Marcus and Zara followed agents to the back of the property. The staff quarters were smaller than expected, 2 rooms with shared bathroom, minimal furniture, bars on the windows that Voss would probably claim were for security. Inside, 3 young women sat on beds, eyes wide with fear. One of them was Jasmine Chen. Zara recognized her immediately from the photograph. Jasmine? The girl looked up. She was older now, face thinner, eyes harder, but it was her. Who are you? Jasmine asked, voice defensive. My name is Zara. I've been looking for you for 18 months. Your mother asked me to find you. Jasmine's expression cracked. My mother, she knows I'm alive. She never stopped believing you were. She's been waiting for you to come home. One of the other girls, maybe 19, with scars on her arm, spoke up. We're not prisoners. Mr. Voss pays us. We have contracts. Hayes entered the room. Can I see those contracts? The girl handed over a document. Hayes scanned it and her jaw tightened. This contract says you're paid $200 a week for 80-hour workweeks. That's less than $3 an hour. Below minimum wage is illegal. And these clauses about housing deductions and penalty fees, this is indentured servitude. But we signed it, the girl said. We agreed. Signing a contract doesn't make it legal. And even if you agreed, that doesn't mean you have to stay. Hayes looked at all 3 girls. You're not in trouble. We're not arresting you. But we're offering you a way out. Medical care, legal support, safe housing. If you want to leave, we'll help you. If you want to stay, that's your choice. But it needs to be a real choice, not one made because you're afraid or because you think you have no other options. The girls looked at each other. Jasmine stood slowly. I want to leave. I want to see my mother. The other 2 hesitated. Then, one by one, they stood. We'll come too, the scarred girl said. We've been here long enough. Outside, Richard Voss stood with his attorney, a man in an expensive suit who looked annoyed at being called before sunrise. Hayes approached. Mr. Voss, you're being detained for questioning regarding employment law violations and possible human trafficking charges. This is absurd, the attorney said. My client runs a legitimate household. These women were hired through proper channels, through an LLC connected to Elias Ochoa's network. The same network that trafficked over 300 girls. Hayes pulled out documentation. Your payments to that LLC coincide with the dates girls were transferred out of facilities. You didn't hire staff. You bought them. Voss's calm facade cracked. I didn't know they were trafficked. I hired through an agency. If that agency was illegitimate, that's not my fault. You paid below minimum wage. You housed them in locked quarters. You didn't report them as employees to tax authorities. You knew exactly what you were doing. The attorney whispered urgently to Voss. Voss ignored him. I want a deal. Like Ochoa got. I'll testify against the others. Hayes smiled coldly. The others? You mean the other buyers who purchased girls through client transfers? You're going to give us their names? Voss nodded. Then we'll talk. But first, you're going into custody. And those girls are going home. 6 hours later, Zara stood outside Mrs. Chen's apartment in Queens. Jasmine sat in the car, nervous, hands shaking. What if she's angry? Jasmine asked. What if she doesn't want me back after everything I've been through? She's not angry. She's been waiting 3 years for this moment. Zara opened the car door. Come on. Let's go home. They walked up the stairs. Together. Zara knocked. The door opened. Mrs. Chen saw her daughter and collapsed. Jasmine caught her, and they sank to the floor together, holding each other and crying in a language that didn't need words. Zara stepped back, giving them space. Marcus waited at the bottom of the stairs. One more to go, Zara said when she reached him. Destiny Morris. Miami, location. Hayes is coordinating the raid now. When? Tomorrow morning. Zara nodded. Then tomorrow we finish this. The final property belonged to a real estate developer named Marcus Green, no relation to Marcus Caldwell, though the coincidence wasn't lost on anyone. Green's estate was oceanfront, modern, with security that rivaled corporate headquarters. Agent Hayes coordinated with Miami FBI to execute the warrant. Marcus and Zara flew down the night before. They sat in the command van watching the sunrise over the Atlantic, knowing this was the last search. The last girl. The end of a fight that had consumed 2 years of their lives. What happens after we find her? Zara asked. Marcus didn't have an easy answer. We keep building the invisible architects. We help the survivors rebuild. We lobby for stronger laws. We train more advocates. And the next network? Because there's always a next one. Then we expose that one too. Hayes's voice came through the radio. All teams in position. Executing warrant now. The breach was smooth. Green wasn't home, he was traveling. According to his assistant. The property manager opened the door without resistance. Inside, agents found what they'd found at every other location: girls living in staff quarters, working excessive hours, paid below minimum wage, trapped by contracts they couldn't escape. But Destiny Morris wasn't among them. Hayes pulled Marcus and Zara aside after the initial search. We found 4 girls. Ages 17 to 21. All hired through the same LLC Voss used. But no Destiny. Where is she? Zara demanded. We found employment records. Destiny was here. She worked for Green for 8 months. Then 3 months ago, she was transferred to another property. Where? Hayes pulled up a document on her tablet. Address in the Bahamas. Private island owned by a shell corporation. No extradition treaty. No jurisdiction. Marcus felt something break inside him. They'd come this far. Rescued 89 girls. Dismantled a network that spanned 12 states. And the last girl was beyond reach. There has to be a way, Marcus said. Not legally. The Bahamas has its own laws. We can't just raid a private island in international waters. What if we approach it differently? Zara said. Not as law enforcement. As private citizens making an offer. Hayes frowned. What kind of offer? The kind that involves money. If this shell corporation bought Destiny, they did it for profit. What if we offer to buy her contract? Pay them more than they paid Ochoa's network? Marcus stared at Zara. You're suggesting we purchase her freedom. I'm suggesting we use the same system that enslaved her to free her. It's not justice. But it gets her out. Hayes shook her head. That sets a dangerous precedent. It legitimizes the transaction. It turns rescue into commerce. I don't care about precedent, Zara said. I care about getting Destiny Morris off that island and back to her family. If buying her contract is what it takes, then that's what we do. I'll make the call. It took 3 days to identify the Shell Corporation's owner, a businessman named Victor Laurent, who specialized in luxury hospitality services in the Caribbean. His properties employed staff through contracts that looked legal on paper but operated in the gray areas where labor laws didn't reach. Marcus contacted him through intermediaries. The conversation was brief. You have a worker named Destiny Morris. I want to purchase her contract. Laurent's voice was smooth, accent European. That's an unusual request. I'm willing to pay triple what you paid for it, plus compensation for training and housing costs. Name your price. Why would I sell? She's an excellent worker. Because if you don't, I'll spend the next year making sure every regulatory body in the Bahamas investigates your properties. I'll fund journalists to expose your labor practices. I'll make your business model unsustainable. A pause. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice. Take the money and walk away. Or fight me and lose everything. Laurent was silent for a long moment. Then, $50,000. Wire transfer. Non-refundable. Marcus didn't hesitate. Done. I'll send the transfer today. You release Destiny tomorrow. And if she doesn't want to leave, then you let her choose. No coercion. No threats. A real choice. Agreed. The line went dead. Marcus looked at Zara. It's done. Zara's expression was complicated relief mixed with disgust. We just paid $50,000 to free one girl. That shouldn't be necessary. It shouldn't. But it is. And until the laws change, we do what works. 2 days later, Destiny Morris stood on a dock in Nassau, facing Zara and Marcus for the first time. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, with eyes that had seen too much and hands that never stopped moving. They said you paid for me, Destiny said. Like I'm property. We paid to cancel your contract, Zara corrected. Not to own you. You're free. No obligations. No debt. We're here to take you home if you want to go. And if I don't, then we respect that. But your mother has been looking for you. For 4 years. She never stopped. And she wants you to know that whatever happened, wherever you've been, you're still her daughter. And she still loves you. Destiny's eyes filled with tears. I thought she'd forgotten about me. Never, Marcus said. We spent 2 years tracking you down. Your mother spent 4 years hoping. That's not forgetting. That's fighting. Destiny wiped her eyes. I want to go home. Zara smiled. Then let's go home. Destiny Morris reunited with her family in Atlanta 3 days later. The invisible architects arranged the meeting in a private space where cameras couldn't intrude and strangers couldn't watch. Marcus and Zara weren't present. This moment belonged to Destiny and her mother. But Teresa sent them a photo afterward, 2 women holding each other, faces pressed together, years of separation collapsing into a single embrace. Zara stared at the photo for a long time. 90 girls. We found 90. Out of 347. And we're still looking for the rest, Marcus said. This isn't the end. It's just the end of this chapter. Good. Because I'm not done yet. Marcus looked at his daughter, this woman who'd spent years fighting a war most people didn't know existed. Neither am I. 3 years after the first raid on the Langley Hotel, Marcus Caldwell sat before a congressional committee in Washington, D.C. The hearing room was packed with journalists, advocates, and families of survivors. Cameras lined the back wall. Every major news network was broadcasting live. The committee chairman, Senator Patricia Morales from California, opened the session. Mr. Caldwell, thank you for appearing today. This committee is investigating systemic failures in nonprofit oversight that allowed labor trafficking networks to operate using charitable funds. Your foundation donated $23 million to organizations that exploited over 300 young women. Can you explain how that happened? Marcus leaned into the microphone. I failed to ask the right questions. I signed checks based on glossy reports and tax documents without investigating where the money actually went or who it actually served. I trusted that nonprofit status meant legitimate operations. I was wrong. Some would argue you were negligent. That a man of your resources and intelligence should have known better. They would be correct. I was negligent. I prioritized efficiency over accountability. I built an empire on predicting human behavior but failed to predict how my own money would be weaponized against vulnerable people. Senator Morales pulled out a document. After discovering your foundation's connection to this network, you spent considerable personal resources dismantling it. You funded investigations, coordinated with federal law enforcement, and ultimately rescued 90 victims. Why? Because discovering I funded exploitation wasn't enough. Discovery without action is just guilt with better information. I had the resources to fix what I'd broken. So I did. Another Senator Robert Hayes from Texas leaned forward. Mr. Caldwell, you've become something of a controversial figure. Some call you a hero for exposing this network. Others call you a hypocrite for profiting from the system that enabled it. What do you say to your critics? Marcus didn't hesitate. They're right. I am a hypocrite. I built wealth in industries that exploit labor globally. I benefited from systems designed to extract maximum value from workers while paying minimum compensation. Exposing one trafficking network doesn't erase that. It just means I finally started paying attention to where my money came from and where it went. The room went silent. Senator Morales spoke again. What changes do you recommend to prevent this from happening again? Marcus pulled out prepared testimony. 3 reforms. First, mandatory independent audits of all nonprofits receiving over $1 million in donations annually. Not audits conducted by firms hired by the nonprofits themselves, but by government-appointed auditors with access to employment records and facility inspections. Second, federal databases tracking all workers placed through nonprofit job programs. Names, ages, placement locations, wages, working conditions. Accessible to labor regulators and law enforcement. If a girl gets placed through a charity program, someone should be able to verify she's safe and being paid legally. Third, criminal liability for donors who fail to conduct due diligence. If a foundation donates to organizations engaged in illegal activity, the foundation's directors should face consequences. Not just fines. Actual criminal charges if negligence can be proven. Senator Hayes frowned. You're suggesting we criminalize charitable giving. I'm suggesting we criminalize willful ignorance. Charity that enables exploitation isn't charity. It's money laundering with good intentions. The hearing continued for 2 more hours. Marcus answered every question with the same unflinching honesty. He didn't defend himself. He didn't minimize his role. He simply stated facts and accepted responsibility. When it ended, reporters swarmed. Marcus pushed through without comment. Outside the building, Zara waited. How'd it go? She asked. I told the truth. Some of them listened. Most of them will write bills that die in committee. But at least it's on the record now. That's all we can do. Make it visible. Make it undeniable. They walked toward the car. A woman approached middle-aged, wearing a visitor's badge, holding a photograph. Mr. Caldwell? My daughter was one of the girls you found. She's home now. She's safe. I just wanted to say thank you. Marcus looked at the photograph. A young woman smiling on a college campus, textbooks under her arm, future stretching ahead of her. What's her name? Marcus asked. Amara. She's studying social work now. She wants to help other girls like her. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Tell her I'm proud of her. And that she didn't need saving. She just needed someone to notice she was trapped. The woman smiled through tears. I'll tell her. She walked away. Zara looked at Marcus. That's why we keep fighting. For moments like that. I know. 5 years after Operation Invisible, the Invisible Architects operated in 12 states with a staff of 64 and an annual budget of $8 million. The organization had evolved beyond rescue operations. Now it focused on prevention, advocacy, and systemic change. Mika Torres, now 18, ran the education division. She traveled to high schools teaching students how to recognize trafficking recruitment tactics. Her presentations were blunt, personal, and effective. "They tell you it's a job opportunity," Mika said to a classroom of teenagers in Brooklyn. "They show you contracts that look legitimate. They promise housing and training. And by the time you realize you're trapped, you're too afraid or too ashamed to ask for help. That's how they operate. They use your hope against you." A student raised their hand. "How do we know if something's a scam?" "Ask questions. If a job promises housing but deducts rent from your paycheck, that's a red flag. If they take your ID or passport for safekeeping, that's a red flag. If they say you owe them money for training you didn't receive, that's a red flag. And if they tell you not to talk to anyone about the job, run." The students took notes. Mika handed out cards with the Invisible Architect's hotline number. "If you or someone you know needs help, call this number. We don't ask about immigration status. We don't report to police unless you want us to. We just help. That's it." After the presentation, a girl approached Mika privately. "My cousin got a job through a program like you described. She's been working at a hotel for 6 months and says she's fine, but she never has money and she can't leave the building without permission. Is that normal?" Mika took her information. "That's not normal. That's exploitation. I'll have someone from our legal team reach out. Your cousin isn't in trouble. But she might need help getting out." The girl nodded, relieved. "Thank you." Mika watched her leave and felt the familiar weight of knowing how many more girls were out there, trapped in systems designed to be invisible. Sofia Martinez, now 26, had passed the bar exam and was working as a prosecutor in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, specializing in human trafficking cases. She sat across from a defendant in a negotiation room, a hotel manager who'd hired 12 girls through Keystone's successor network. The organization had rebranded, changed names, but the tactics remained the same. "You're facing 23 counts of labor trafficking," Sofia said. "You hired workers below minimum wage, housed them in locked facilities, and withheld wages through fraudulent deductions. The evidence is overwhelming. But I'm authorized to offer you a deal." The manager's attorney leaned forward. "What deal?" "Testify against the staffing agency that supplied the workers. Provide documentation of all transactions. Help us identify other hotels using the same system. In exchange, we recommend reduced sentencing 10 years instead of 30. The manager looked at Sofia. "You're one of them, aren't you? One of the girls who got out?" Sofia didn't flinch. "I'm the prosecutor who's going to make sure you spend the next decade thinking about what housegood you did. Take the deal or don't. Either way, you're done exploiting people." The manager took the deal. Marcus Caldwell no longer appeared on Forbes lists or business magazine covers. His net worth had stabilized around $400 million, still enormous, but a fraction of what it had been. He'd sold most of his stake in Caldwell Technologies and redirected the proceeds into 3 areas: the Invisible Architects, a legal defense fund for trafficking survivors, and a lobbying organization pushing for labor law reform. He lived in a smaller apartment in Brooklyn, close to the Invisible Architects headquarters. No penthouse. No staff. Just a quiet space where he could work without distraction. Bishop, still his forensic accountant, sat across from him in the headquarters office, reviewing financial reports. "The Invisible Architects is financially stable," Bishop said. "Donations are up 18% this year. Operating costs are covered. You could reduce your personal contributions if you wanted." "I don't want to." "Marcus, you're still funding 60% of the budget out of pocket. That's not sustainable long term." "Then I'll make it sustainable. I didn't dismantle one network just to let the organization that replaced it collapse from lack of funding." Bishop closed his laptop. "You know most billionaires don't do this, right? Most would have written a check, issued a press release, and moved on. Most billionaires didn't accidentally fund a trafficking network. I don't get to move on. You've been saying that for 5 years. And I'll keep saying it until every girl from those files is found or until I run out of money trying. Whichever comes first. Bishop smiled. You're stubborn. I learned from the best. Marcus thought of Zara, who'd spent 9 years fighting this fight before he even knew it existed. Speaking of which, where is she? Testifying in federal court. Another contractor case. She should be back by 3. Marcus checked his watch. He had a meeting with Senator Morales in an hour to discuss the progress on nonprofit reform legislation. Then a conference call with advocates in 6 states coordinating a multi-state awareness campaign. The work never stopped. 7 years after Marcus Caldwell returned to New York, he and Zara stood in the same diner on 46th and 9th where they'd first negotiated their alliance. It was late. The diner was nearly empty. The waitress who'd stopped caring about tips during the Clinton administration had retired. A younger woman served them coffee they didn't drink. I got an offer today, Zara said. Department of Justice wants me to head a new task force focused on labor trafficking prevention. Federal position. Budget. Staff. Real power to make systemic changes. Marcus looked at her. That's incredible. Are you taking? I don't know. It means leaving the invisible architects. Leaving the direct work with survivors. Becoming part of the bureaucracy I've spent 7 years fighting against. But you'd have more reach. More resources. You could implement the reforms we've been lobbying for. Or I could spend years trapped in meetings while nothing actually changes. You know how government works. Marcus smiled. I know how you work. You don't accept systems that don't serve people. If you take that position, you'll tear the bureaucracy apart from the inside until it does what it's supposed to do. Zara was quiet for a moment. What about you? What happens to the invisible architects if I leave? It keeps going. Mika's ready to take over operations. Sophia handles legal. Bishop manages finances. Teresa oversees the safe houses. The organization doesn't need me or you anymore. It's bigger than both of us now. That was always the goal. Build something that outlasts us. We did that. Now the question is, what do we do next? Zara looked out the window at the city that had swallowed her, shaped her, and ultimately gave her purpose. I think I take the job. I think I go to Washington and fight from inside the system. And when I get frustrated or blocked or told I can't do something, I'll remember that I used to work as a maid gathering evidence no one wanted to see. If I could do that, I can do this. Marcus raised his coffee cup. To fighting from the inside. Zara raised hers. To making the invisible visible. They clinked cups. Drank bitter coffee. Sat in comfortable silence. I never apologized properly, Marcus said. For the 9 years you spent doing this alone. For not listening when you tried to tell me the world worked differently than I thought. You apologized 100 times. I heard you every time. But did I earn forgiveness? Zara set down her cup. You earned something better. You earned my respect. Forgiveness is about the past. Respect is about the present. And right now, I respect the man you became after you realized money didn't solve everything. Marcus felt something settle, not closure, exactly, but acknowledgement. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. For letting me help even when you didn't trust me. For teaching me that purpose matters more than profit. Zara smiled. You're welcome. Now stop being sentimental. We have work to do. Always. They left the diner and walked into the Manhattan night. Somewhere in the city, a girl was being recruited with promises of opportunity. Somewhere else, a survivor was testifying in court. Somewhere else, an organization was rebranding to hide the same exploitation under a new name. The fight wasn't over, it would never be over. But tonight, walking through the city that had taken everything and given them purpose in return. Marcus and Zara understood something most people spent lifetimes missing. Wealth measures what you have. Legacy measures what you leave behind. And the only legacy worth building is one that makes the world safer for people who'll never know your name. 10 years after Marcus Caldwell walked into the Langley Hotel and saw his daughter pushing a linen cart, he stood at a podium in Brooklyn addressing the annual Invisible Architects Conference. The room was full 300 advocates. Survivors, social workers, prosecutors, and journalists who'd spent years making exploitation visible. Marcus was older now. Gray at the temples. Lines around his eyes from years of focusing on details most people ignored. But his voice was steady. 10 years ago, I returned to New York, searching for my daughter. I found her working as a maid in a hotel, gathering evidence against a trafficking network I'd accidentally funded. That discovery broke something in me. Or maybe it fixed something that had been broken all along. I spent most of my life building wealth by predicting patterns. Market trends. Consumer behavior. Election outcomes. I got very good at seeing patterns in data. But I was completely blind to the patterns happening right in front of me. Girls disappearing into systems designed to exploit them. Charitable donations funding illegal labor operations. Contracts written to trap vulnerable people in cycles they couldn't escape. My daughter saw those patterns. She spent years documenting them while I was busy building algorithms and accumulating zeros in bank accounts. When I finally started paying attention, I realized something fundamental: the same tools that build empires can dismantle them. Money, resources, connections, they're neutral. They amplify intention. And for too long, my intention was profit without accountability. Marcus paused. The room was silent. Over the past 10 years, the Invisible Architects has helped rescue 247 survivors from exploitative situations. We've trained over 3,000 advocates. We've contributed to legislation that reformed nonprofit oversight in 6 states. We've partnered with law enforcement to dismantle 12 trafficking networks. Those are the numbers we can measure. But the real impact isn't in the numbers. It's in the girl who graduated college last month after escaping a labor camp at 16. It's in the prosecutor who was once a victim and now convicts the people who exploit others. It's in the high school student who recognizes recruitment tactics and warns her friends. It's in the systems we changed and the awareness we built. I'm proud of that work. But I'm not proud of why it was necessary. I'm not proud that it took my daughter disappearing for me to notice the problem. I'm not proud that hundreds of girls suffered while I signed checks and attended galas. That shame doesn't go away. It shouldn't go away. Shame without action is just self-indulgence. But shame that drives change, that's redemption. Marcus looked out at the audience. He saw Mika in the front row, now 21, studying social work at Columbia while running the Invisible Architects Education Division. He saw Sophia near the back, wearing her prosecutor's badge, already checking her phone for the next case. He saw Teresa, Bishop, Agent Hayes, Judge Winters, and dozens of other people who'd fought this fight when it was lonely and invisible. And he saw Zara, standing at the side of the room, arms crossed, watching him with an expression that was equal parts pride and challenge. She'd flown in from Washington for this conference, taking a break from the Department of Justice task force she now led. The Invisible Architects will continue long after I'm gone, Marcus said. That was always the goal. Build something that doesn't depend on one person's wealth or one person's guilt. Build something that serves survivors and prevents future exploitation. Build something that lasts. Today, I'm announcing my retirement from the organization's board. Mika Torres will take my place. She's earned it. She's lived it. And she'll lead this organization better than I ever could. Applause erupted. Mika stood, surprised and honored. Marcus stepped back from the podium. His part in this story was ending. But the story itself would continue, written by survivors, advocates, and people who refused to let exploitation hide in shadows. 15 years after the first raid. The Invisible Architects operated in 23 states with a staff of 200 and an annual budget of $40 million. Mika Torres led the organization with the fierce pragmatism of someone who understood both the horror of exploitation and the possibility of escape. Sofia Martinez had been appointed as a federal judge, the youngest in her district, presiding over trafficking cases with the authority of lived experience. Zara Caldwell ran the Department of Justice's anti-trafficking task force, implementing reforms that had once seemed impossible. And Marcus Caldwell? He lived quietly in Brooklyn, consulting occasionally for organizations fighting exploitation, but mostly staying out of the way. He'd learned that the best thing powerful people could do was step aside and let survivors lead. He visited the Invisible Architects headquarters once a month, not as a donor or board member, but as someone who'd learned the hard way that purpose mattered more than recognition. On a warm evening in October, Marcus stood on the same rooftop where he and Zara had once promised to finish what they'd started. The city stretched below him, lights blinking, people moving, systems churning. Somewhere in that city, a girl was being recruited. Somewhere else, an advocate was intervening. Somewhere else, a survivor was testifying. The fight continued. Marcus pulled out his phone and sent a text to Zara. "We did it. Not perfectly. But we did it." Her response came immediately. "We're not done yet." Marcus smiled. She was right. And as long as people were willing to fight to make the invisible visible, to use power for purpose, to believe that change was possible, the work would continue. Marcus looked at the skyline one last time, then walked downstairs. Tomorrow, there would be another case to investigate, another network to expose. Another girl who needed someone to notice she was trapped. But tonight, standing in a city that had taught him everything he'd been too wealthy to learn before, Marcus Caldwell understood the only truth that mattered: the best investments don't appear on balance sheets. They appear in the lives you change and the systems you dismantle. They appear in the survivors who become advocates and the advocates who become leaders. They appear in the quiet moments when someone trapped realizes they're not invisible anymore, that someone is paying attention, someone is fighting for them, and someone refuses to look away. That was the legacy worth building. That was the fortune worth leaving behind. And as Marcus disappeared into the Brooklyn night, the lights of the Invisible Architects headquarters stayed on, a beacon for anyone who needed to know that help existed, that escape was possible, and that the fight against exploitation would never stop. Not as long as survivors had voices. Not as long as allies had resources. Not as long as people believed that wealth without purpose was just numbers on a screen, but wealth with purpose could change the world. The story of Marcus Caldwell, and the network he accidentally funded, had ended. But the story of the Invisible Architects and the thousands of lives it would touch was just beginning.